have Big Wesley, aka Big Flexley here. Look at him. All right, man, I got some questions for you. So, I've always wanted to ask you, we're fresh off of the Fisher Random. How do we castle? Can we castle in check or not? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's I guess depends on what rule, but if you look at the FIDE handbook, they say your king can move if it's attacked.
Okay, right. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. I've actually done that myself in over the board chess there, so a little joke there from the Fisher Random. Favorite openings and why?
I guess this e4, e5, queen h5 stuff.
Ooh, okay, all right. Don't give the secrets away yet, Wesley. Don't give them away. Come on. Pre-game rituals?
Listen to music.
Okay,
generally.
what genre?
Usually like oldies.
Okay,
Like,
oldies. Nice.
yeah,
How
like-
old? 50s, 60s?
Yeah, like 70s.
Wow,
80s.
70s. Nice.
You know,
That's
I like
interesting.
the Carpenters. for
Okay,
example.
Carpenters. I'm not familiar. Of course, you
relaxing.
probably
Bee Gees.
are. Bee Gees, okay.
The Bee Gees is great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
I also like Eminem, I think.
Okay, you like
Yeah,
Eminem? Yeah,
probably
you're from
like
Detroit. Yeah, of course,
He's
right.
from Detroit.
Yeah, I'm from Detroit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely love some Eminem. We appreciate you and actually.
Thank you. It's
and
fun.
of course,
Yeah.
congratulations on all your success and good luck in the tournament.
My name is Ethan Curry. We all have nicknames. Chicago is naturally where I'm born and raised, so that's how I got the name. I guess they call me the muscle. I'm the one with the passion. I'm always looking for a good fight, Evidently, it don't make a difference, man. That's checkmate coming up. It don't matter. What we're trying to do is to let them know, hey, we playing down here in Houston, Texas. And if you come down here half-stepping, trust me, we're gonna beat you. You better bring your game. 3 minutes? All right, let's do it. Okay, little London system. All right, quick. Oh, nice development. This ain't bad. He thinking. Queen D2, okay, all right. What is that? Your move? That's not a move.
No, that is not a move.
I mean, it's cute, it's a little pawn. You got more of them. You got more. There it is, GG. He actually played, you played good though. You played much better than I thought, right? Great game, brother. Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you, man.
It's our final day inside the luxurious One Hotel Toronto, but inside the gameplay hall, there is still some unfinished business. On Sunday, the American Wesley So took the lead, seizing opportunities when given. But there are few to rule out India's Nihal Sarin and his ability to come all the way back. It's day 2 of the title match at the Chess.com Global Championship. Today, we crown a champion.
Yes, I was born in Vancouver. But as wonderful as Andrea and Vancouver are, it's pretty tough not to fall in love with the city of Toronto. Natural beauty abounds inside Toronto and pretty close by. The largest city in Canada. Canada! The people here have been playing chess in clubs, in universities, and in public parks for well over a century. And now this wonderful place plays host to the very first Chess.com Global Championship Finals. Facing elimination for weeks, two of the world's best players are one step away from completing their quest for the queen-size share of the $1 million prize pool.
Queen h6. Oh my gosh, Queen d2.
Queen d2 is checkmate. King c4, you're not escaping.
No, you're not. Queen d3. It's me.
Oh my god.
And he goes up 2 points in his final. He claps his hand.
My wife, you're in the right place. It's time for the CGC's championship match. Toronto, Canada officially has it all.
Thank you once again, Botez sisters. Great job all week opening the show. Speaking of work, Wesley So has showed up early on the job as he prepares to protect his day one lead in Toronto. Meanwhile, in Belgrade, Serbia, Nihal Sarin is thinking about how he might steal back this championship title. Welcome inside the playing hall, Amon Hambleton, Danny Wrench, Anish, Giri, and Daniel Naroditsky with you on this Championship Monday. We'll soon be joined by Fabiano Caruana and Robert Hess to call our opening game today. Today we find out who will be the first global champion of the Chess.com Global Championship. That includes a check for $200,000. Fellas, what are you looking forward to most? Anish, welcome in. I hope this chair is a little more comfortable than the one we had out there for you.
Thank you. Glad to be here. You know, as a player, I want to see good chess, but as a commentator, we need that comeback. We need the Nihal comeback. We need to get some blood on the board. Let's get it rolling.
Don, are you excited to see what happens on
I'm
Monday?
sad it's the last day, Danny, but let's try to extend this day for as long as possible. As a commentator, I totally second Anish. I want to see blood, and I want to see an Armageddon.
I love how quickly Anish switches from being player to commentator. He knows we want Armageddon.
Seamless.
Exactly. Yeah, he's filling the shoes nicely. And filling Canty's chair nicely as well. Danny, I second, of course, what the guys are saying there. Danny, I just want to see more chess. You know, as a fan.
We'll see if Nihal can do it. It's going to have to be early if it's going to happen. So, all right, here's how we got here. So and Sarin won their quarterfinal matches on Thursday. Then So beat Nakamura, and Sarin took down our pal Anish in the semis on Saturday. Yesterday, we played our first 4 games of the title match, and today, we reward a winner. All right, that's where we sit. Let's start with the leader. After he took a 2-point lead at the end of Sunday's games, Wesley So spent a few minutes talking with Nemo. Wesley was clearly excited, but also grateful to be here.
Well, very good. I mean, I played my 3rd term in a row, and the first 2 went badly. So finally, something's going well, and I'm very grateful for that. But I'm also very fortunate actually to be here because in the qualifier when I played Jeffrey Xiong, I should have actually lost that match. So like I wasn't playing well that time. It was like a month ago, but now I'm playing better. So I'm very, very glad for that. At some point, you get tired of losing too many games and you want to do better. Hopefully that's what's happening to me right now.
Of course, and I wanted to ask, what happened on that Game 3, King to C1?
Yeah, that's insane. Because basically I'm down an exchange and a pawn before that, and Nihal found all these accurate moves, e5, d5, rook d7, like he found all computer moves, like 5 moves in a row. And I was reeling at that point. I was also down on time. So that was really a critical moment of the match because he was like winning. I mean, it's not an easy win, but he was definitely winning, and if I made one more mistake, then the game would be over. Yeah, I was just trying to make use of all the chances that could arise. Try to never give up, and you know, it's Blitz, and anything can happen.
What's your approach for tomorrow? You are 1 day away from winning $200,000.
Yeah, well, I'll have to score 1.5 out of 4. Yeah, try to make many draws.
I mean, I love that response, making some draws.
It's obvious, huh?
Wesley says it's obvious. Wesley has had a not so obvious path to get here to the finals. Barely got by Zhang. Many remember that, but also was just very impressive overall since getting here in Toronto. He's only 29 years old. Maybe he had a rough year in his eyes, but he's doing well here in Canada. All right, guys, Wesley, humble as always. He knows he has a lead to protect. Thankfully, we have a guest here who had a 2-game lead that he almost let slip. So if you were giving Wesley the coaching on protecting a lead, what would you be telling him right now?
Well, you know how it happens, move by move. Like, you don't win 2 games right away. You don't lose 2 games right away. But first, you know, comfortable position turns a little less comfortable. And, you know, that's how it starts. That's how it goes.
But how were you feeling when Roger almost staged that comeback?
Yeah, I mean, it was slipping away. And I came into the day with a 1-point lead. I think it's a little different when you come into the day with a 2-point lead. There is a psychological difference. You prepared for a +2 situation for the 2-point lead up front the entire day. So I was actually looking for a very tense match. I was only up by 1 point. And I won, of course, the first game. And I was shocked by that a little bit somewhat. I was like, wow, okay, I'm a +2 now, looking really good. So it was a little different psychologically. And I feel Wesley is really confident right now. But anything can happen. I think if the prize, the stakes get into the Wesley's head, perhaps that will be the beginning, you know, of the poison.
How does he avoid the poison, right? Wesley is very good at staying humble, keeping himself the underdog. You expect him to do that again here today on Monday.
Yeah, he's been ridiculously composed under all circumstances, good positions, bad positions, winning, losing. It just does not matter. He's been totally impervious, but the way he definitely shouldn't approach this is the way I approached a paper that was due in 2 days. And I've got the 1 day to just screw around, and then I can start working the next day. Wesley's got 2 losses before Nihal catches up to him, but he shouldn't think of, you know, the first loss as, oh, you know, even if I lose, it's okay.
Right.
He should just try to put Nihal away right off the bat.
Yeah, that's a great point, Danny. And you know what else is the case here, Danny, is that when you ask that question, what does Wesley need to do? It's like nothing different.
Yes.
Keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, because Wesley So has been dominant everywhere. He's not getting too low on the clock. He's turning bad positions into maybe draws, and he's turning those likely drawn positions into wins. So keep doing what you're doing if you're Wesley. You honestly don't need to change anything. He's been phenomenal so far.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, they say. Well, someone else needs to fix something, because Nihal Sarin finds himself in a 2-point hole and is starting with the black pieces. After his games on Sunday, Nihal sat down with Mike Klein and was honest about the situation he finds himself in.
Honestly, today Wesley just played amazing chess. I'm just very upset about the 3rd game, which I think I totally outplayed him, but then he showed some great defense, and of course I should have just taken the draw at the end, but I just got too carried away, and like with 4 seconds, of course I should take a draw. It's a very basic mistake, and against a player like Wesley, it does not go unpunished. So no, just great play by him, and I just hope to put up a good fight tomorrow.
Does it give you a little bit of a solace that you were better in that game, and if you had converted, this would actually be an equal match right now? Does that give you some hope for tomorrow?
Not particularly, but I'm just happy that sort of like more ambitious than ever, just going all out, not something I usually do. So just happy that I'm fighting.
What would you put your chances at let's say, getting to at least an Armageddon tomorrow?
Objectively, it's not very high, but I'll just try to start from 0 and just try to forget today and try to put up my best chess tomorrow.
Here's the score after 4 games, as well as the games that lie ahead for Nihal to dig himself out of this hole. It's first to 4.5 points to win today's match. Remember that. All right, guys, so you heard Nihal, and you heard his thoughts. You've made comebacks as well. I know I teased you about Rajava, but you've also been in a spot where you had to come back. So now, speaking at large about Nihal, speaking at large about comebacks, what does Nihal's mindset have to be here to change things?
Yeah, I think with the first game playing with the black pieces and being 2 points down, I think Nihal will want to play for a win. Not burning all the bridges, but burning quite a bit of bridges, because you need to win 2 games. You have 2 whites. You can't waste any chances. And I think as a chess player, you know, you don't think of some grand strategy. You think about, he's going to play 1e4, what's my move?
Right.
And I think Nihal has to figure out the approach. I think the Pirk, the modern setup with G6, Bishop G7, it worked all right yesterday for him. It's a bit predictable, but on the other hand, yeah, perhaps that's where his thoughts lie. He will maybe study some modern variations, some Pirk, some move order somewhere, maybe try to surprise Wesley. He played with A6 yesterday, maybe today with C6, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do. And another opening that Nihal has played successfully against me in Blitz is the French with black. You know, I know first time anybody's using that word in the pregame show. But French with black, maybe one E4 with white. So he's got to find that middle ground approach where, you know, you don't have to play one H4 or do something ridiculous or extreme, but taking Wesley out of his comfort zone a little bit, doing something a little bit unexpected, and just focusing on the things that he can control. He cannot control Wesley's level and quality of play. So if Wesley plays great, you know, you take your hat off, but you do what you can do to put yourself in a position where maybe you'll get lucky.
Yeah, and Nihal needs to keep his objectivity.
It's hard. It's hard.
Really important that you don't get too emotional about the match. You're down by 2. You're not trying to come out here, Danny, and just sack a bunch of pieces, right? And then you lose a game. Suddenly the match really is over. So he has to remember that he has put Wesley in spots where a lot of people would actually lose those games. Wesley has just defended really well. He's handled those moments under pressure really well. But if Nihal keeps putting Wesley in those spots, I mean, maybe he's going to make a mistake. And Nihal can't make this comeback without a mistake from Wesley. So he's got to put him in
Sometimes you need a little bit of luck along the way, right? But you got to put pressure first. Speaking of pressure, you felt the pressure against Nihal. Nihal, you played him. And let me just ask you point blank. Do you think he's capable of this comeback?
Well, certainly, and you have to realize that Nihal's been coming back in this event. First of all, against Sam Savian. Against me twice as well. So it's not a new situation for him. 2-point deficit is more than usual, though, so I'm not sure how that feels, but he'll certainly try.
Okay. Well, you know, I think it has to start early, right? It has to start early. Don, your thoughts on what he would need to do to strike game 1, I think, to put Wesley on his heels?
Amon mentioned emphasis on objectivity. I agree, and I think he shouldn't exaggerate the magnitude of this crisis in his head. You actually can make a draw. So the last thing you want to do is immediately burn all your bridges and lose a game right off the bat. He can make 1 draw. He can even make 2 draws. So I don't think that he needs to deviate from his normal style all that drastically. I just think he needs to make a very calculated choices in the opening, again, to put himself in a position where he can, at the very least, you know, benefit from a mistake by Wesley.
Okay.
That's a great point, but also the openings, Danny, right? We have to remember, like, this is where Nihal's been struggling. He hasn't really generated anything with the white pieces. I think with the black pieces, he has some of his great chances in this match. So keep it spicy with the black pieces, but with white, he needs something new. So I'm expecting him to come with something that we might not have seen before.
All right, well, it's going to be awesome. We're going to see what happens. Let's set the table for our match today. We played 4 games yesterday. We are set for 4 more today. But remember, it's first to 4.5 points wins. And, of course, the winner gets $200,000. I love saying that. It's 3-1 Wesley, as you can see before you. And we're going to get into this matchup on day 2 of the title match. Guys, the styles, we started naturally on the big picture stuff, and it's gotten more and more specific. So now, one more time, you mentioned the Pyrrhic Modern, but Amon touched on white. What would you do if you were playing white as Nihal?
Yeah, I mentioned black because you started the day with the black pieces, so it's always important. But with the white pieces, that's a good question. I didn't like Nihal's attempt to take Wesley in the main line of the Catalan. I think he's more of a sideline guy at the moment. Against me, he managed to get interesting positions with certain sidelines. He tried the knight f3, b3 sideline against Wesley in the second white game. I think something in the middle. I mean, you probably want that pawn on d4, you know, before you put the pawn on b3. Maybe you don't want the pawn on c4. Like some London system-ish kind of thing is what I would expect. But Wesley is very solid, very well prepared. He has a narrow repertoire which he controls very well. You know, when you don't play too many things, the things that you do play, you know. So it's very hard trying to crack through Wesley's repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of when I was rifling through my backpack after arriving in Toronto. I realized I'd forgotten part of my computer charger, but you just keep opening the same pockets, trying to find something. That's kind of what Nihal's going through in the Berlin. It's like, can I just maybe find that one sideline? Now, I would argue that there actually are more legit sidelines within the Berlin and within the Ruy Lopez than one might realize. You could put the queen on e2 early. You could take the knight on c6. So I feel pretty strongly that Nihal should at least try one game with one e4 and prepare something relatively fresh, because obviously in Rapid you can't review all of your files before the game. Try to catch Wesley off guard. Again, do what is within your control.
Yeah, you want to do what's within your control and also what you know. You know, he's had some success in this tournament with that London style of opening, and he doesn't just play the main line of it. He has some sidelines, and I feel like that's an area where you can catch Wesley. You know, not just the main line of a popular opening, but something, you know, a bit of a deviation, something where Nihal will be comfortable. He can maybe get ahead on the clock and put some pressure on Wesley.
It's funny, you're saying maybe give it a hand in 1e4. You're saying maybe stick with the London and find a subtlety.
He's got a couple games with white.
What we know about Nihal is he said he doesn't even always bring his computer to it, right? He wants to stay fresh in between the games. So maybe Nihal's like, you're both wrong. I'm just going to do Puzzle Rush while I get ready for the next thing. So, all right. Well, we're going to see how it plays out on the board today, of course. But before we do, let's review our picks from Sunday. Amon, we start with you. Remind everybody who you had.
Yeah, Danny, I had Wesley So in this matchup, and obviously with the lead that he's got right now, I'm feeling good about my pick.
I also did have Wesley So. I believe he's going to take the day in the end.
I also had Wesley So, and I also stick to my pick.
I also had Wesley So, and while I want to see a close match, I'm also realistic, and I think Wesley's going to stick to it and win.
We don't just say that because he's behind us right there. He just took his seat on the stage. Hey, Wesley, we see you. We know you hear us. You don't have to pretend you can't hear us. It's okay. All right, he'll put his headphones on soon. But, okay, this has been awesome, guys. Can't wait. But that is it for us. We'll see you soon, chat. And we'll be here after each and every game until we crown a champion. For now, let's bring in Fabiano Caruana and Robert Hess to call Game 5 of our title match.
Thank you, Danny. Great to have you lead the show as always, Fabi. You played so many matches in your illustrious history. How have you felt and what have you done when you're trailing in a match?
Well, I've been behind like this, but I don't know if I've ever been able to make a comeback like this. But if anyone can do it, it is Nihal. You know, he's already done this in this tournament, made big comebacks. We'll see if he can do it again.
Okay, well, right now he trails by 2 points against Wesley So. It is 3-1 in Wesley's favor. We will have 4 games potentially today if Wesley So does not lock up the match before then. But Fabi, you said if anyone can do it, it's Nihal Sarin. Just how does he bounce back from a setback in day 1 and get on the right foot here in day 2?
Well, I think he has to make a running start for it. He needs to, as the guy said, needs to start playing for a win from the very first game because there's limited time, and it's quite a big deficit to make up.
It certainly is because 2 points a lot. Wesley So has a great opening repertoire, and not many people out there in the Chess.com community predicted this matchup, and only 26 total brackets had this matchup, and 12 of those 26 had Nihal Sarin as the winner. Quite a few Nihal believers out there, Fabi.
Well, I have to say, I was one of them, and I still hope that it'll be a very close match, but it's getting harder and harder.
Right, and as you just said there, you are also a Nihal Sarin believer. You chose him to win this match, and, you know, it's harder and harder to believe in him, but I had Wesley So. So you went with Nihal Sarin, I went with Wesley So, and the chat did not agree with you. They went with me. They went with Wesley So as their global chess champion. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But we want to remind everybody of the format. You may think 3-1. What's going on here? Wesley So has in the bag 8 total games, Fabi. So the guys, they were talking about the strategy. 8 games. How do you see Nihal playing this?
Yeah, I think the first game, the most important thing will be the openings. Because the players have an evenly matched in terms of middle game. There have been some small differences here and there, but the openings have been where the biggest difference has been and where Nihal has struggled so much. So he's had a night to prepare, to think about Wesley's opening strategy. Wesley's a bit of a limited player in terms of his opening repertoire, but what he knows super well. So Nihal will have to try to find a way to surprise him.
Okay, we see the players, they're on screen there, but in their head-to-head matchup between these two, not much over-the-board experience, but Wesley So, the older player, he also won their head-to-head in the Speeches Championship last year.
Well, you know, I noticed that last month when we were playing in the U.S. Championship, and Wesley was also playing, he said, I tend to struggle against these young teenagers, and he lost to Christopher Yu there, but he doesn't seem to be struggling in this match at all. Maybe he's found a way to adjust.
Well, you know, he certainly has, and Nihal Sarin will have to find a way to adjust for himself because the openings have not been his friend in this event. Maybe he wishes that he could have played an Ice and Fisher random chess because his middle game prowess has been on full display. And as we get set for Game 5 here in the title match, Wesley So gets the white pieces. Fabi, I'm just curious to see Nihal's first move after D4.
Well, we see another modern. But the difference here is that Wesley can potentially approach this in a different way, maybe not playing E4. And we see he plays G3, he shows his intention, and we'll see a sort of King's Indian setup now.
That's right, and Wesley So, he's kind of the king of the draw when he needs one. He's so difficult to beat. And look at this, c5, spicing things up early. Is Nihal Sarin trying to open up that bishop on g7?
You know what I'm thinking now? If Wesley wants to play super solid, c3, that's the way to do it. Because d5, you have some sort of potentially a Benoni. D takes e5 is some sort of unusual, not very unusual, but imbalanced pawn structure. And c3 is what he plays. Very, very solid. Actually, a little bit annoying potentially for Nihal if he wants to play for a win.
So you're speaking Wesley So to everybody out there. You knew what he would play. And Queen a5. We tell newer players not to bring the queen out too early. But Fabi pinning this pawn on c3, trying to play c takes d4 so the pawn can't recapture. Nihal, this looks like prep.
It looks like at least he's taking it. I mean, I can't imagine how prepped you are for this, but maybe he's just saying, even if I don't know the line well, I'm just going to play quickly and confidently and play something unusual. I'm thinking like the way to punish this now is to play d5 because the queen doesn't belong on a5 in a Benoni structure. It's very misplaced there. The only point of this is that black wants to play c takes d4, avoiding white recapturing with the pawn, so you avoid a symmetrical pawn structure. The only point of queen a5 is I really want to fight at any cost. Any other tournament match situation, Nihal would not make this move, I don't believe. But just because he really feels I need to make winning chances in this game, and that's the correct thing. He's played an unusual move like queen a5. I wonder if we'll see either knight b to d2, trying to get another, symmetrical safe pawn structure for Wesley, or maybe he wants to punish Nihal with d5 like he tried to, punish Hikaru Nakamura when Hikaru was in a must-win and played a very dubious opening.
And something you've said, and I think this is a very good point, that when you need a draw, you don't play for a draw. You just need to play your normal chess, play for a win. But with this opening by Wesley, c3, and now he's thinking, I feel like Nihal should be happy because he notices that Wesley's trying to keep things symmetrical, keep things solid, and so with the lead on the clock and maybe more preparation at home, Nihal getting the chances he needs, at least as much as you can say after 4 moves.
Yeah, at least when you know that your opponent wants to play very safely, it can be a bit predictable. And you can try to maybe capitalize on that. It's not easy, but you sense your opponent's fear in a way. Maybe it's not like a very strong fear, like Wesley's not worried in this position that, he's worse or anything. Of course, he knows he's slightly better. But it's the fear of, I don't want to get into a sharp double-edged position because I really want to wrap this match home. And something Anish said, the stakes, the huge prize fund, being so close to a huge victory like in the Chess Global Championship, maybe that will get into Wesley's head a little bit. That's where Nihal's hope will lie. If there is hope, that's what he should be thinking. Maybe Wesley will start to get nervous.
Okay, well, we did just see the move a3. Wesley making his intentions clear with the move b4. And now black can take on d4, Fabi. The point is that the c3 pawn is pinned, that the c3 pawn cannot capture, but I think he'll still play b4. But this is what I feel like you want if you're Nihal. White to overextend, throw pawns forward. Black simply retreats the queen. Now when you take, it looks great for white. Pawn b4, d4, more control. But I think these pawns stick out like a sore thumb.
You know what I noticed structurally in this position, which is if the pawn were on g2, then maybe white would play, bishop f4, e3, and cover that c4 weakness, because that is a hole in white's position. But once you've played g3, you really want to play bishop g2, and then the bishop doesn't really cover c4 at all, so it becomes even more of a weakness. So the pawn on b4, it looks like, white got some extra developing moves. In fact, white did get an extra a3 and b4 because black went back and forth with the queen, but these are not useful extra moves. These are somewhat weakening moves. Of course, still roughly equal position that we might see, but yeah, overall a pretty good opening outcome for Nihal. The first maybe successful opening outcome that we've seen in this match.
And Nihal, he's spending time here, so he is just a little ahead in the clock as he continues to think about this move. It's only 5 moves in, but we have a position that should be new to both players. It's kind of rare territory. I do love the choice, and I think that Nihal, he should keep playing quickly. CD4, he has made that choice. He could have done that, though, in 5 seconds, Fabi.
Yeah, but he's still keeping a slight lead on the clock, although Wesley's starting to pick up the pace because, of course, a3 forecasted his intentions to play b4. There was no other point to that move besides playing b4 and recapturing with the c pawn on d4. So now Nihal will decide where to put his queen. d8 looks like a very logical square, but of course, black does have a choice here.
Right, you can go anywhere on that diagonal. I don't think the queen, well, maybe it can go all the way to h5, trying to hope for a pawn push and get on the light square. So there are different options for Nihal. I just don't like the fact that he's now down the clock. He built in a minute and a half lead, and it's evaporated very quickly.
Yeah, that's true. I think that queen d8, like, this is not a critical decision in the game. You might as well make this decision quickly because whether it's queen c7 or queen d8, it's not going to make a huge difference in the evaluation of the position. Something like queen h5, yeah, it might be tempting, but it's rather risky as well and probably not what black wants to go for.
Well, many options here, but with Game 5 well underway, let's bring in Anish Giri, one of the semifinalists here in the CGC, to join us to commentate for a while. Anish, are you liking what you're seeing from Nihal thus far?
Thank you, guys. First of all, good to be back with you. Yeah, I do like what I'm seeing. This is a interesting idea to provoke b4. I was even thinking to go back to d8, then go d5, and you've got this weak c4 square. You see these things with colors reversed sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the queen on b6, I feel like it's a little bit out in the open. Queen d8 is what Fabi and I were talking about, and you both mentioned the c4 square, because when pawns are 2 squares away from each other, look at the square in between. But Fabi, knight of 6 played, I mean, you still feeling black's position, or do you think that Wesley has enough time to cover the weak squares?
Well, one thing I don't like very much is a queen on b6. It's going to run into knight a4 ideas, potentially after knight c3. I don't know what it's doing there because it's not attacking anything. And the other thing is it doesn't support the pawn on d5 when black plays d5. So for example, knight c3, d5 here, black would rather have a little bit of extra support with that pawn with the queen on d8. Now, for example, bishop g5 is a bit annoying because how do you defend that pawn? If you play e6, your bishop is a little bit on c8 is a little bit cut out of the game. It feels like queen b6 was just a waste of, half a tempo for black.
I agree, and well, somebody we saw bring their queen to its starting square was Anish. When you played this beautiful queen d1 move, but how difficult are those moves to play, especially in the heat of a match where you are down 2 full points?
Yeah, I think we see that Nihal is slightly unfamiliar with this particular type of structures, but he's going for an entirely different approach. He's doing sort of a Pirc defense-ish thing without the c-pawns. I don't know how that's going to play out. I think it's a very dubious approach. I'm starting to like White's position. I think it's both good, but also pretty safe.
Right, I think this knight belonged on b6, right? If the queen were on d8, this knight could hop around here into that c4 square that you two were indicating is a weakness in White's camp. I'm just struggling because a5 seems logical, but at the same time, White can just combat that with the pawn push to b5, and the knight on b8 looks silly. Fabio, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm wondering more generally, Anish, what do you think about the player's nerves? Will Wesley's nerves hold up? Is he a player who's a bit nervous in these critical situations, or a player who can stay calm?
A little bit nervous, but I think as you know as a player yourself, even when you're nervous, you do need a question to be asked on the board. I mean, just because you're nervous, you're not going to fumble over and drop your head on the resign button. You're going to keep making moves. But if there are questions on the board that are not easy to answer, then the nerves come in. That's where you make a mistake.
Okay, well, I think a big question right now is the move d5. The bishop's on e6. That bishop would probably like to go to c4, bring a rook to c8. So d5 looks scary because the bishop opens up on the long diagonal. But is that a move that you would make, Fabi?
Well, I would be a bit nervous, not because of the tactics, because the tactics very clearly work out in White's favor after, let's say, d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, queen d5. Black gets excited for a second. I took a rook on a1, but then bishop to e3 happens, and White regains the piece with very likely a winning position. So the tactics are easy, but the positional aspect of it is a little bit more difficult to assess because the pawn d5 is extended. And if Black makes a move, let's say bishop f5 or g4, it's not exactly clear where the bishop goes. But then Black has easy development with knight d7 and putting some pressure on knight on c3. So it becomes a little bit concrete and difficult to assess. But on the other hand, Black is also wasting a lot of time. And again, the queen on b6. Bishop to e3 might come, and putting a bishop on d4 potentially. Black did lose some time with that queen on b6 rather than d8.
You are a Wesley So whisperer. He does not play d5. He chooses bishop b2. Anish, you a fan of this decision?
Well, the point Fabio was making about d5, indeed, it's a move that is very responsible. You open diagonal, but I feel in the early opening stage, especially when you can get moves with tempo, attacking other pieces, usually they're good. So d5 and bishop e3, they would come with tempo. And that makes a difference. And I think that felt more right. Bishop b2, a little more timid. I mean, White has certain commitments already in terms of strategical weaknesses. The c4 square is weak, and I don't think White should play it all too slowly, because if Black goes rook fc8, queen dropping back to d8, then, by the way, the queen b6 would make some sense, because you got the f rook out, and then maybe knight b6, knight c4. So Black has potential, and I think White has to... I would feel like this move d5, I still want to play d5. Honestly, I regret bishop b2, but d5 feels like the right move.
Well, you used the word timid, and he played the move h3, and all of a sudden the evaluation bar, it went from edge for White to near equality, but it's dynamic position. So, Fabi, another move that doesn't seem to threaten anything of Nihal's, and it's a quiet move. So, do you think that Wesley's a little bit nervous?
Well, I think that it looks like White has a space advantage. White has Black has a little bit of a passive position. That's how it looks on first sight. But I like the word you used, dynamic. I think, in fact, that Nihal is taking a page out of Jeff Goldblum's book from Jurassic Park. You know, when you have this like latent energy, your pieces sometimes tend to break free, and that's what I think he's looking for.
Wow, reference I did not see coming. And Anish, you mentioned rook f to c8, queen can slide back to d8, knight to b6. Do you think that Nihal's going to start with rook f to c8 here?
Yeah, I think the move h3, it sort of highlights the fact that the bishop on e6 has lacks squares. So I think he pretends that d5 is a threat. Now the question, is it a threat? Because d5, bishop moves to f5, g4.
Oops, sorry, that's me.
Bishop has to move to e4. G5 almost wins material, but not quite.
Wait,
let's say black makes a move like rook f c8
yeah,
here.
that's what the point I'm trying to make. So d5, bishop f5. And bishop is short on squares. Maybe knight d4 traps the bishop for a trade.
I have a tactical suggestion, but I'm not sure it works. It looks a bit crazy. After d5, is there knight takes d5? Trying to calculate this. Knight d5, bishop d5, bishop g7, bishop f3, bishop d4, bishop e2. Some kind of crazy stuff happens. Probably doesn't work out for black.
Queen d2 here, yeah? And indeed the variant.
And that might be the end of black's position.
Although, what
Queen
if I
b5?
take? And you take here, and I take here. What's the material count? I get a ton of pawns, and I feel like for the queen, it's worth it.
Is that a bishop or a vacuum cleaner? Didn't it just like take half of white's pieces?
Vroom, vroom, vroom. Give me that, all of your pieces. And I feel like this is the type of position Nihal wants. It reminds me of the game between Wesley and Hikaru, where Wesley won Hikaru's queen, but maybe it wasn't worth it. You guys are silent. Wow, I just stunned you.
No, I'm just speechless. I'm just, you know, like whenever I calculate, I use that advice: 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I forget, but basically steps back are important. I'm really not sure like how we ended up here, what happened. Let's just take a moment and go back. Like first of all, rook f8 has not yet been played. I have a lot of options.
It just played.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So now it's a big question. Will Wesley go for d5 because he has to both calculate those lines that we just looked at, which I don't think he would be worried about because it looks more like white is the one who would be better there rather than black. But also after d5, bishop f5, it's quite a sharp position. Like there's knight d4 there, and the bishop is in some slight trouble.
Knight e5, knight c4 is something I get in return for the. But normally knight f5, gf, it's not a pretty pawn structure. I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, white's pieces are absolutely terrible. Like the bishop on g2 is quite a bad piece. It's obstructed by the pawn, but also the bishop b2, knight c3 duo with the knight coming to c4 doesn't look very pretty for white.
No, that c4 square looks tastier than latkes with applesauce. I'm jumping right in, and I think that's what Wesley's scared about right here because he has not moved after rook f8, and he is ahead on the clock. So Anish, I think we're talking in terms of both tactics and strategy at the moment. d5 feels like the principal move, but it could really backfire, as we just showed a line where the e5 square becomes black's for the taking.
Yeah, can I make one general point? Something I discovered about chess a long time ago. So when both sides castle short, and you've got this tension between the bishop on b2 and the bishop on g7. Now this tension is very often benefiting black because the g7 bishop is protected and the b2 bishop is not. And that's kind of a abstract thing, but it matters quite a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like this bishop on b2 in the first place. But now that we're here, d5 seems to work. I think that position where we stopped after bishop f5, knight d4, knight e5, I'm not convinced by by all the arrows you've drawn. I do like white's bishop pair. I think the pawn on f5 is very weak. If I ever attack it, you will have to defend it with e6. That will open up my bishop, weaken your kingside pawn position. So I think this particular position, I'm not against it. But Wesley keeps playing very timid. Rook c1, that is so incredibly timid. Wow.
Yeah, you know, I think that Wesley is usually such a concrete player, but maybe, nerves are getting into play a bit that he doesn't want to take very responsible decisions. Normally, we would call him Wesley ex machina because he's so concrete. He can play like a computer, but, it doesn't feel like he's going for the most concrete approach in this game.
I didn't expect to think about Domhnall Gleeson on this show, but wow, you made an ex machina reference. Hopefully, the human can survive. That is Wesley So, and b5 is in play. So with this inclusion, Anish, a5 and b5 here, it feels like this pawn on b5 can be a straggler, especially if black throws this move a4.
Yeah, well, once you've played a5, you are... maybe you have something in mind for b5, because the pawn indeed is kind of briefly hanging in the air. You do have to use the momentum, maybe knight d5, trading the knight and targeting the pawn.
Ooh.
I think what's very important after knight d5, if white, let's say, takes on d5, bishop d5, and let's say he goes a4, black gets to control the central e4 and d5 squares very well with the move like knight f6. I think that's always quite nice in these positions where you neutralize the bishop on g2.
No, this looks really good for black. In fact, this a4 pawn is a long-term weakness, and you can even move your queen back to d8, bring your knight to b6, and that is a target. So, Fabi, I'm starting to like Nihal's position, and Wesley, he makes the move b5, Nihal back on the clock. The one thing I'm a bit concerned about is Nihal, we know how strong he is in bullet, but I feel like he's not maximizing the potential with his clock management.
On the other hand, this is the best position that he's had from the opening in the entire match. I mean, he is better with black, and he has never been worse in this game. Maybe at some point he was a bit worse, but it was an unclear state. But yeah, Wesley didn't really play this very well. It feels like he just doesn't want to take responsible decisions, but at some point you just have to make responsible decisions. And like a5, b5, Wesley was forced to do that. And this is a structural change, which is potentially rather difficult for white in the long term, especially, the bishop on g2. It might look like a good bishop on a long diagonal, but it completely neglects white's queenside. It doesn't have any control over the c4 square, protecting b5 potentially. And I like that idea that you at some point mentioned to play queen to d8 and knight to b6, because those knights are really jumping into the weak squares, especially c4. That is the biggest weakness in white's position.
I feel like we're a great team. We're all suggesting these moves. They're happening. The knight comes to d5. Anish?
You guys kind of teaming up against me. I feel this, I was going with the knight to f6. You're both going to b6. Just to continue that line, so takes, a4 if you go queen d8. How bad is it if I play knight d2, trade the bishop, then bring out the queen to b3? I don't think it's such a big deal here, but maybe there are some concrete issues also with rook takes c1, and I cannot recapture with the bishop.
So you're saying here, we can't take with the
Yeah,
bishop.
and you grab the file as well. You grab the file with the rook c8, and you've got some momentum going. No, it's probably slightly better for black already.
Yeah, just to finish the variation, something like this. The file is under black's control. a4 is easier to approach than a5. d4 is needing this bishop's defense. So yeah, it just does feel like a position where black is slightly better. But let me ask you, this is a realistic variation. Is this exactly what Nihal wants? You couldn't ask for more, having the second move. But Fabi, it's not that easy a position to actually win from here.
Yeah, it's a position which is based on very small margins. So black has an advantage. It's pretty clear at this point that black is the one pressing in the position, but it's a very small one. And the lines that we just looked at, they were based on concretely, white has to capture on c1 with the queen. If white gets absolutely every move to control all the weaknesses, then it's probably going to turn it into a sterile position. Because, yeah, we have one open file, the c file, and it's very likely at some point that all the rooks will get traded down onto that file. That's what happens when you just have one open file in the position, that, rooks love open files, and they tend to trade down. So, yeah, Wesley played a4 immediately, which also allows knight to b4, which is an interesting choice. He's not going for the trade of pieces. And to me, when I see the knight on c3 versus knight on b4, I think the knight on b4 is a better piece. So why didn't you want to trade that off immediately?
Well, Anish was advocating for the trade, so Anish, a4 played. Would you hop that knight into b4 if you're Nihal?
Yeah, I have to say, though, the a4 certainly had a point. Now, if you do trade on c3, you probably need to put that bishop on d5, so you as white would have gained some time. So that was the idea, but indeed you allow knight b4, and b4 is an interesting option. I should mention one thing. In this position, black has a lot of options on every move, and Nihal's time is slowly ticking down. And while he is good at bullet, bullet is a game where both sides have no time. It's not a game where only Nihal has no time. At that game, he's not that great. So, yeah, I think he has to accelerate a little bit already. He's down a couple minutes. Position is good, but, the clock might matter.
And I feel like knight b4 is just a practical decision, keeping more pieces on the board. Black has better control of squares, and I always say this, when you have good control of squares, a little bit more space, you want more pieces because your opponent's pieces, for example, this bishop is staring into its own knight, whereas we're talking about this bishop on g7 having a healthier diagonal. So, Fabi, knight b4 is your suggestion?
Well, let me ask you a question about knight b4, because when I see that move, I think it looks great, but there's a question about d5. I'm wondering about d5. Because if bishop f5, your bishop might potentially get trapped. It doesn't seem to be getting trapped, but it's a little bit, because it can always go to e4 due to that pin on the diagonal. You have bishop g7. It could even, in worst case, go to e4 here. Maybe there's even something better, tactically speaking. But you have to calculate these lines, and yeah, Nihal is getting a little bit lower on time. Wesley likes to keep that cushion on the clock. I've noticed that even when he has a bad position, he wants to have a healthy time advantage to either trick your opponent or, when it's, let's say, absolutely hopeless, you can at least, try to conjure up some tactics. And you can't do that when you're low on time. When you're low on time and losing, then it's just pretty much game over.
Well, they put h6, taking away the g5 square, I guess, from this knight. Maybe just a slower approach. But Anish, that tactic that Fabian was showing with his bishop being on b2 being loose, you mentioned that. That's a huge highlight.
Told you so.
It would play a part. And he plays h6. So do you think that Nihal just is uncertain about where to go to from here? Or do you think in part he's saying, I have the black pieces, a draw is okay, even if it's not desired.
No, I don't think there's a talk about the result at this point. I don't think h6 is... what I don't like about the h6, I don't like the combination of spending a lot of time and playing h6. Clearly, like, if you play h6 instantly, okay, you were, let's say, lazy to spend your time and you just want to make a quick move. But if you spend the time and then play h6, not a good sign. I think he was looking at knight b4 at all kinds of options, and he was like, yeah, you know what, I don't know what to do, I'm not certain, let me just play h6.
Okay, and we see the trade. Queen comes up to d3, in comes e4, c4, b3, all under white's control, at least for the time being. I still like queen to d8, knight to b6. Let me go after a4. Give me the c4 square. I feel like that's Nihal's best chance, Fabi.
But Robert, queen d8 is a really tough move. It might be the best one, but knight f6 is just so natural, especially low on time. You might even just play knight f6 automatically, not even calculate the lines. Although you realize that if you have to win this game, knight f6, knight d2, followed by the trade of bishops, and white not having any of his weaknesses under attack. You know, a4, black's knight can't get to it anymore after it goes to f6, and c4 is no longer a weakness because black's light squared bishop is going to get traded off, and white covers that square with more than one piece. So maybe he'll realize that he can't go for simplifications, and he'll play queen d8, get that knight to b6, and brilliant. I mean, Nihal... That's a very clutch moment to play queen d8 in that situation.
And Anish, your point just still holds true. e4 almost traps this bishop, right? Because e4, bishop e6, there is no d5 with b2 loose. So once more, you proved to be the prophet. Sorry, Danya. And this is a really, really important point in the position.
Yeah, and I want to point out that this knight f6 is a very instructive positional mistake that I was suggesting. It's a thematic move when there's nothing going on the queen side, which is often the case. If white had the pawn on b3 on a2, knight f6 would be the best way to go. But here, in this particular pawn structure on the queen side, the knight belongs on b6, and it's really impressive of Nihal to figure that out in this quick time control and actually go for queen d8, not be tempted by this stupid move I suggested, knight f6, which is actually really showing a lack of understanding here. So queen d8 is really precise, knight b6. Now e4, as you say, almost traps the bishop, but chess is all about almost. Almost doesn't count. And e4 is a committal move otherwise, because you block the g2 bishop's diagonal. And especially whenever you play d5, which was the case in one of the lines Fabi showed, if this move d5 doesn't win a piece, you've weakened even more squares. You weaken the c5 square, the e5 square. So you have to really be careful with these pawn pushers. If they bring you nothing concrete, maybe stay away from them for a while. I feel this knight d2 idea and then queen to b3, I'm not, you know, if I get queen to b3, pawn to e3, trade the right pieces, I think white long term is not doing too badly, but things can get concrete.
Yeah, I think something specific is if knight d2 trying to trade off the pieces, black will swap, just to show this line quickly. Bishop takes, kings, and then d5. I always like to point out a pawn 3 squares away from a knight dominates that knight, and then it gives black the flexibility of a knight b6, knight c4 maneuver as this game continues. I just feel like white's position is unpleasant, even if it's okay. So Fabi, I mean, black should be the side for choice. Knight d2 was played. We see those trades, and knight b6 first. So, you know, what do you make of this decision?
Yeah, I have to say, if I were playing with the white pieces, I wouldn't be too worried. One thing which I noticed is because of the bishops, the a5 pawn is a weakness. White will play queen b3 here almost automatically, I think. And if the rooks are ever traded off, because, okay, right now the a5 pawn is covered, but if the rooks are ever traded off, which is very likely, at some point bishop c3, a5 attacks that pawn, and it's very difficult to defend it. And if black is forced to move the knight from b6 and play b6, we can only talk about him being worse in that case. Maybe equal, but definitely not better. And I don't really see why black is better in this position. Like, if white plays e3 here, just covering d4, I don't see black's plan, you know? Everything is covered. I see like some queen e6 idea, maybe.
Yeah, one more point. So yeah, queen e6 is a very concrete idea, indeed, what I was saying. And one more point, in speaking of strategy, like if you go d5, I have this bishop a3 idea as well, where bishop on that diagonal, after e3 first, of course. Bishop on that diagonal will be pretty good. I can kick out the knight with bishop c5. So I think that your only asset as black is the fact that the a4 pawn is a little shaky. Maybe this queen e6 idea, and then the thing is white will struggle to defend the a4 pawn and fight for the c file at the same time. But my first instinct, if I look at this position, I wouldn't be worried as white. So I have a feeling, especially this pawn on h6, you know, here it's kind of clear that at some point black played h6 and he shouldn't have. Like, it was a waste of a move.
Okay, queen e6 I like because it's a concrete move, and Nihal goes for it. I didn't see anything else that white could do. The only problem is it's very likely at some point we will see a trade of the a-pawns. Let's say white plays a concrete way, and Wesley, I think, is going for rook c8, and probably rook c1 will be the follow-up.
Very accurate.
And black will probably be forced to trade on c1 because how else do you contest that c file? White will take on c1, and actually the bishop is better on c1 than b2, which we'll see in the line where black takes on b3 and takes on a4. Bishop on b2, it would actually win a pawn because that bishop would be attacked. With the bishop on c1, white has time to play knight takes a5, and the more pawns we see traded, the more
draw
we are heading towards.
The more draw.
The more draw.
Well,
Exactly.
you used the word draw, Anish. That means I got to kick you out of the studio. We really appreciate you having here, but we say goodbye to you for now. Congrats on a great tournament, and good luck in the rest of the year.
Okay, thank you very much. You got my punishment. Thanks, guys. It was great. It's a great time here hanging out with you, and I'll see you. And
Thank you, Anish.
Thanks, Anish. Hate the word draw, but that is something that Nihal Sarin wants to avoid, like snakes on a plane. There is no Samuel L. Jackson coming to save the day, and there is going to be a queen swap. But Fabi, you pointed this out, the bishop on c1. That is essential here, because when these queens are traded, after knight takes a4, if the bishop were still on b2, it would be under attack. Now white can simply take back on a5. We have liquidation, and we have the word that Anish just used that got him kicked off set.
Yeah, I think that we are seeing the players heading towards a draw. In fact, I see Wesley floating towards a draw, like Princess Peach on a parasol. This is heading in a direction which is very favorable for Wesley in terms of match situation.
Wow, and Wesley's like Bowser out there. He is the big bad boss at the end of the day. And this queen trade is on the table. Nihal doesn't really want it, but he may have to accept it, and that's not good for his chances in the match. While he still will get 2 white games, Fabi, he had an advantage here, and he probably knows he let it slip a bit.
Yeah, I think this will be disappointing if he doesn't find a way to create chances here, and also going low on time. Now with 1:30 against 3 minutes and 30 for Wesley, it's going to be very hard to create chances because I don't see any move besides queen takes b3, which is logical. You can try to keep the queens on with d5, but then white can think about queen c3 potentially, attacking a5, and Nihal is going for a drawish line. This is heading towards a draw. Knight takes b7, knight takes b5 will most likely be played at this point, and the trade of the entire queen side, symmetrical structure, from the D to the H files, symmetrical pieces, no imbalances in the position, so very, very likely a draw and a tiny step closer for Wesley to overall tournament victory.
Yeah, b7, b5, both under attack. Both pawns can be captured. I wouldn't be surprised to see a draw offer from Wesley. And unfortunately for Nihal, he wants to buy a draw less than I want to buy a Prodigy desk, but still in this position, these pawns coming off the board, there's not much life left after the series of trades.
Yeah, and I have to say, just like the Prodigy desk, this is a smart choice for Wesley to head towards a safe position and a good result overall if we see what is very likely here, which I think we will see.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about match strategy again. How will Nihal try to fight back? Because the match is still on. b6 doesn't change much because the knight comes back to either a4, d5, a4 in this case, and the trades are coming. Knight to a5, white will just get that knight out of, the potential danger zone in black's enemy camp, and we're going to see a draw here.
Yeah, there's not many pieces remaining, but Nihal might be trying. I don't know what try he can even attempt, but he's going to bring his king up. It's just a symmetrical pawn structure. 5 on 5, not many pieces remain, no weaknesses in either camp. So Fabi, I don't think that Nihal really believes in his chances here, but if Wesley somehow gets in time trouble, that's the one thing that Nihal can hang his hat on.
Yeah, at least the time is equalizing a little bit, but again, there's too few imbalances in this position to create anything. Black has maybe the slightly more pleasant position, you could say, because the d4, e3, f2 chain is on the dark squared complex, the same as black's dark squared bishop. So it's a bit easier for black to play. But now knight b4 is coming. A trade of knights will be instant draw, because then just too few pieces left. So black will have to try to avoid that trade of knights if he wants to win, but then that knight goes to a less active position. Wesley will not be concerned whatsoever, because black really can't create threats or ideas here to play for a win.
No pawns are weak. Everything defended. We see a pawn chain from f2 to d4. We have a shorter pawn chain here. e7 under attack. The king defends it. Just not enough firepower to go after any of the pieces. But Wesley trades on f5. And why haven't they offered a draw to one another yet, Fabi?
This would have already been agreed a draw, but just because of the match situation, Nihal, it's just not good for him that this is a draw. That's the only reason they're playing on, because, of course, between two players of this strength, it's not the result is not really in question. Maybe if they both had 5 seconds, then we would see some sort of commotion, some blunders potentially. But even in that case, I would still bet on a draw. But they still have plenty of time. I mean, 1 minute 35 seconds. It's a lot of time for this position where you don't really need to make difficult decisions.
Yeah, crazier things have happened. The knight comes into e4, bishop back to e1, knight g5, the pawn would go up to h4. So I think if you're Nihal, you have to somehow go after this pawn. And if the pawn keeps pushing, that means it's closer to the black pieces. h5 played by Nihal, f3 will just kick this knight out of here. And I think it's about time, Fabi, to boot that knight.
Yeah, you could play f3. You could bring the knight back to d3 to potentially go to f4 and put some pressure on black's h-pawn. Already, I would slightly prefer white because that h5 pawn is a bit more of a weakness that can be attacked. Of course, we're still talking about the dreaded 0-0-0 that the engine shows with almost any move, where it's very difficult to make mistakes here. Even if you blunder h3, like if you play knight d3 here, I don't even think you can take on h3, maybe because of f4, and then the knight is completely cut off from the game and might likely be lost. Still, we would probably see a draw there, but I don't even think black is threatening anything in this position. Still, h4 can't be a mistake. Don't even create any imbalances. Just protect all your pawns, put your pieces in defensive positions, and coast towards a draw.
Well, Wesley plays h4 after a big thing. Now we're into a bit of a scramble, but Wesley's a fantastic bullet player. We keep praising Nihal Sarin because he's often the highest rated player on Chess.com, but Wesley himself is a fantastic player with just seconds on the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. And bishop h6 was played because black was trying to avoid white playing d5, kicking the knight away from the control of f4, and then knight to f4. If white were to play knight f4 here, he would actually get in this very serious trouble because black would take, play king to e6, put the king on d5, and then we're talking about a classic very, very bad bishop and weak pawns scenario, but of course Wesley would never go for that. Further trades going even closer towards that draw. Still, Nihal is trying, and the good thing from his perspective is that they're getting a bit lower in time, but knight f4 is coming next. Bishop f6, knight f4. The trades just keep coming one after the other, and yeah, I don't think Wesley is too worried.
It feels like it's just in time, because if that bishop had been to f6 with the king elsewhere, there would not have been knight f4 as a saving move. Instead, we see the bishop to h6. If the knight goes to f4, black will take with the bishop, and the h4 pawn will be loose. So I do like what Nihal's doing, but I also like what Wesley's doing. e5, just trading off pawns. Without pawns, there's no hope to win this game, and Fabi, only two left.
Well, I think what we might see is after knight takes e5, probably the trade of knights, and then a scenario where if white just gets rid of black's last e-pawn, it doesn't even matter if he loses the remainder of his pieces, because famously, the bishop and the h-pawn do not win because the bishop is not on the right colored square. That would we say. If it was a light squared bishop, of course, that would win, but yeah, we just see a complete trade and king against king, fighting to the bare kings and a draw.
And a draw is in the books. That is good news for Wesley So as he tries to make fetch happen and fetch $200,000 first place prize. We see him walking off the board, the computer there, and now he's going to go to the player area where he is going to take a deep breath as he leads now 3.5 to 1 now, Fabi.
Robert, you're not going to make, don't even try, you're not going to make fetch happen. That's not going to be a thing.
Okay, well, I don't need you to tell me what to do, but Wesley So also doesn't need any advice. He is in charge of this match. He is ahead by the score 3.5, 1.5, and as we see some of the shots from the game, Nihal, he was locked in there. He played a good game, but it was not enough to overtake Wesley So.
Overall, it was a high-quality game, and Nihal can look to it as some sort of tiny moral victory in terms of him playing for a win with the black pieces and getting a comfortable position and outplaying Wesley in some parts of the game. Still, Wesley was never in serious danger. I don't think he was ever super worried. But yeah, Wesley was a little bit worse and on the back foot in this game.
He certainly was, and there were some big moments in that game, Fabi, where Wesley could have taken the decision to push a pawn, create some more problems in his position, but also gain some things. And I think this is a good place to start because he made the move bishop b2, but Fabi, d5 was the move that we kept talking about here in the booth.
I think Wesley showed some slight nerves around these opening stages because he didn't want to overcommit, but I think what he did against Hikaru was better. When he was ready to push his pawns and punish Hikaru for very risky opening play, he should have done the same thing in this game. Instead, he just wanted to, keep it as controlled, contained as possible, not overextend at all. But sometimes it's not the right decision. Even, we say when you need a draw, sometimes it's best to play for a win because you should play the best quality moves. If you get an advantage, you also have that buffer of even if I lose my advantage, I'm still not worse. While if it's an equal position or a slightly worse position for you, you don't have that buffer anymore. Then you have to play super accurate to hold the balance.
Yeah, here d5, the point, everybody, is that once this bishop moves away, say to f5 or g4, this bishop can come out to e3 to d4, more active squares for the white pieces. Compared to the game, Fabi, where after bishop b2, after this series of moves here, it just felt like black was the side for choice, already posing problems against white's pawns.
Yeah, I like the way that Nihal was handling this for a long point. I think there was only one moment where he will look back with some regret in this game, which was if we go down the road a few moves, the move h6. This is a slow move. Again, it felt a bit nervy, like I don't want to spoil my position. I don't want to do anything too responsible, and knight to b4 was probably the way. It's a bit scary because you allow d5 and some potential tactics, and maybe Nihal was thinking, oh, I'm also getting low on time, I shouldn't allow tactics. But the tactics were working for black, and knight to b4 would have left that very awkward knight on c3, and also kept the pieces on the board, which would have created potentially more winning chances.
Right, this bishop loose on b2, as Anish was pointing out, that was essentially you take the bishop on e4, you lose the bishop on b2, you'll see the evaluation bar go in black's favor with the queenside edge. So that was overlooked, and after that, it was pretty steady draw because the knights were traded, and after that, Wesley So needed no help to secure the half point. So that is it from Game 5 here in the cast booth. We're going to send it over back to you, Danny and the fellows.
Thank you, Robert and Fabi. We are now joined by Amon Hamilton, Danny Wrench, James Canty back in his chair, and Levy Rosman, Gotham Chess on the edge. Game 5 is in the books. It was smooth and as peaceful as a sponge bath. Let's take a look at the score. We've got 3.5, 1.5, a lead for Wesley So. He's just holding on and gonna try to, he'd like this thing to be a draw the whole way out if he could. So let's talk about Game 5. Amon, I'm gonna start with you. Wesley said his favorite animal was an armadillo. He just tucked up and defended there, rolled up real nice.
He did, and you know what, Danny, that's all he needs to do. You don't want to get into that mentality of, oh, I just need a draw, so I'm gonna play for a draw. But I think Wesley probably is the best at doing that. I think he wanted a draw, but he didn't play in a way that he gave up too much. That being said, I think Nihal got a little bit of something, but Wesley's just one of the best defenders in chess.
Is it too little too late, or is Nihal feeling a little bit of momentum right now?
Yeah, they know momentum. This thing is done, bro. It's just, in fact, shout out to Big Flex Hess, right? When he came with the movie references, right? Mine is the Neo. He's like one. He's the Matrix, right? He's literally the one right now. It reminds me of the scene, right, when like Neo got shot, and then he's like, oh, he's dead, but he woke up, and then he started doing this, like blocking everything with one arm. That's how it feels like Wesley. You just can't hit him. You can't even do anything to him right now, and he's like a game away from clinching the whole thing.
Yeah, the Nihal game, I think, was like a moral victory. He played like a really nice game, got a good position with black, but I still feel like he's just a little hesitant. You can really feel the tension in the games that they're playing. Wesley's just trying to neutralize, like you said, just trying to get it down to the draws, get that 4.5 magic number. That was a nice game for Nihal, but it came 5 games too late, right? So he's got 2 more games to strike. I think the next game he's going to go all out. So it might be over, or he might make the comeback.
It's too late for moral victories, though, right? Even if he played well, I mean, what about the next game? What do? You got to get a real victory.
Yeah, you need to get a real victory. We mentioned it earlier in the pre-show, Danny. Looking for maybe that sort of, London system, maybe offbeat sideline there. He needs to generate something with white because, honestly speaking, as Levy indicated, that's a great game with the black pieces.
He played
but
well.
It's just not a great game for the match. When you're down 2 points, you can't pat yourself on the back for helping Wesley get half a point closer to that result he needed.
Yeah, the knight f3, b3 thing, like the Hikaru system yesterday in game 4, just seemed like kind of a odd way to go. I really thought that Nihal plays d4. Okay, don't play the London system, but play an IMSO Indian. Right. So forcing line, just keep some pieces on the board. I'm really surprised he didn't go for it. I'm predicting it for game, 6? But I don't know. I really, at this point, nothing Nihal does is predictable anymore.
Yeah, you can't hit him. I mean, literally, again, it's like this. Wesley's just blocking everything. And then, so if I'm Nihal here, I'm like, well, you know what? Look, I'm just going to go in here in the last game, have some fun with it, and think about what I'm going to spend this 100,000 on.
Not yet the last game. If he wins, it won't be the last game. Last game.
You're right. Well, that's right. It won't be the last game, but it feels like it's gonna be the last game. Really though, I'll be thinking about what I'm gonna do with this 100,000.
So he's already going fishing in his head.
Exactly. I'm like,
I don't think so. The other way to look at it though is like, as impossible as this task is, you have to start with one game. You have to start with one step at a time. Drawing with black would be the chess thing to do, and you take your chances with white. That's what top grandmasters do. He now has the white pieces, and we're gonna see what Game 6 gets us. All right, we've been lucky enough to spend a bunch of time with Wesley So this week. Before the tournament began, Nemo sat down with Wesley, who was very candid about his expectations for the CGC finals.
I'm very excited. I mean, I have to fight for my spot because there are always other players, other younger players. Yeah. But I like the game. Give your best, see what happens. I just want to play some good chess.
So, Wesley, are you excited to be here this week?
Yeah, definitely. First, it's good to see all the people here in Chess.com. And I'm very excited because it's the biggest online chess tournament.
What are your own internal expectations for competing this week?
I really look forward to it. You know, there are 8 games. Knockout's my favorite tournament format.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, you don't know when you're going home. As long as you don't lose too many games, and you still got a chance.
How is preparing for a rapid tournament like CGC different from preparing for large over-the-board events?
6 years ago, most of the tournaments were classical, but this year we're really moving it online. Also, faster time controls, speed chess. So you gotta be very good in Blitz. You gotta be very good with the mouse. And also practice makes perfect.
Thank you so much, Wesley. It's been a pleasure having you.
One of the nicest guys in chess. Let's talk about Wesley a little bit and his year. Gotham, you do videos covering top players more than anybody in the world on your YouTube channel. Have you done many Wesley So videos this year, and is it because maybe he hasn't won any events maybe until now?
I mean, listen, I'll do a Wesley video anytime. Obviously, like one of the most stable players, one of the strongest guys, and all the top players compliment him maybe more than anybody except like Magnus or let's say Hikaru in a fast format. They're all like, oh, it's no shame losing to Wesley. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to say? Tough year, like he didn't win the U.S. championship, right? Fabiano did. He didn't win the World Championship of Fischer Random. Hikaru did. Like these are good people to lose to. You know what I mean? He was still on the I believe he participated in the Olympiad.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, yeah, if he wins this thing, that's huge. It's the biggest individual prize winner of the year, right? Yeah. So I think it's a pretty solid year, and he's still got World Rapid and Blitz if he plays. If not, all right, we'll see him in 2023.
I think it'll be the biggest first place prize he's ever won in his career.
That's absolutely correct. In fact, 2 things. One thing is that, you know, I think Wesley's the biggest troll of everyone. I think he's just, you know, in a great way, of course. I say that because he's like, I'm just not that good. And then, you know, I mean, yeah, I didn't have a good year losing to Hikaru, right? I didn't have a good year at all. The U.S. Championship, playing still great chess, right? But I didn't have a good year, but he'll crush you all the time. Anybody, it doesn't matter who you are, basically. Even beat Hikaru to get here. And now at 200,000, that's nice. He won, I won 20,000 the same year he won 100K. So he was 21 years old. The biggest prize he has won, I think, was that 100K in a Millionaire Chess, the first one.
That's right.
Yeah, so 200.
Tournament. I was at that
He was there.
Yeah, I remember watching you win.
Yeah, I won it. But he's gonna get, well, if he wins, he gets 200,000 here, so that's double. So I'm gonna have to, you know, see what he's doing and go hang out with him. You know, drinks on Wesley.
Yeah, drinks on Wesley. Get real friendly with him after that check is cash.
We might have to do that.
But I mean, honestly, like Wesley is. You mentioned how humble he is. You know, we see it in the interviews. Always, you know, very critical of himself. But he's also just the nicest guy you see on camera. You know, Wesley So, and I just want to confirm that that's Wesley So off camera as well. Right. You know, he's got time for the fans. Even just hanging out, you know, watching some of the games, just out there in the hall, you know, with us and you know any of the fans that have dropped by. He always has time for a conversation, and you know, you just see that humility on camera, and just want to reaffirm that that's the real Wesley.
No, it really is. For those who don't know, he really is. He hangs out, he comes out, he's all smiles, he's chipper, he'll take pictures with anybody, and he truly is a sweetheart. So, all right, well, we also met a lot of sweethearts at some point. We've had a small army of commentators here this week. Among those is our good friend and unabashed New Yorker, Levy Rosman. Recently, I had a chance, as I was saying, to talk to many sweethearts in New York who know Levy and some who do not. How often do you get recognized on the street?
If I come to Manhattan and walk around for an hour, I'll probably get recognized. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, well, we're gonna find that out right now. Hi, sir. For $1, do you know who this is?
I don't know. I'm gonna guess a musician.
Okay. Pretty good guess. He is an artist.
Okay.
He's an artist who plays a game. What game would he play?
I'm not
sure. The Game of Kings.
Nope, don't know it.
Okay. Hi, sir. Do you know who this is for $1?
Negative.
Negative. Okay, cool. Good talk, though. You know who I am for $1? Oh my God! Do you know who this is?
Yeah, of course, Levy.
Okay, dude. What? Take $2.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah. Hey, do you know who this is for $1?
Yes.
Who is it?
I do. That's Levy.
That's Levy Rosman. That's right. There you go. For $10, you know who I am.
No.
Okay.
You're the Chess.com guy?
I am the Chess.com guy, but do you know who this is?
No.
Okay, here's $1 for knowing who I was. For $1, do you know who this is?
Dude, Jake? Dude, it's Jake.
No, it's close though. Keep guessing.
Tommy.
Actor.
Actor.
All right,
okay. Yeah. What type of acting?
Comedy.
Comedy.
Okay.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. not really, but.
I was like, magician?
Oh, yeah, that's the third magician we've got, so thank you. This is great. It's the shirt. It's the shirt, right?
It's got to be the shirt.
Okay. Hi, for $1, do you know who this is? No. Look closely.
It's a chess player.
That's right. Who is he? Levy, you want $1? Okay, thanks, man. Good
Wow.
talk.
He got it and
I could tell you knew. You were acting disinterested, but I saw you. I see the chess in you. Can we just appreciate how many people said you look like a magician? What was that, man?
I don't know. I guess it was the spots on the shirt. I don't know. I like that shirt a lot, and it's funny because people are like, "Oh, it's like a magician shirt," and I'm like dying inside because that was not the goal of the shirt. You know what I'm saying? But it's a nice shirt. I'm going to continue to wear it. Very comfortable, very flowy. I love how nonchalant people were, and they're also nonchalant in Toronto. I was walking home today from like a bagel coffee shop, and some dude was like, "What's up, Levy?" I'm like, "I don't." What? We don't know each other. What do you mean? What's up? But it's fine. It's just there was just no shock value. He was like, "Hey, what's up, man? I like your videos." I'm like, "Oh, all right. Yeah, have a nice day at work." So yeah, sometimes people are super nonchalant. Sometimes they're like trembling and really nervous. That's also like kind of adorable. You know, you take the selfie for them because otherwise the phone's gonna fall out of their hand. And I'm sure you guys have like had to do this too. It's like. It's cute. You got both sides.
Not quite as many people recognize us. I mean, honestly, but
that guy recognized
you will never
you,
be
not
able to
me.
wear that shirt again without knowing that this is the magician shirt. You got a shirt that's your magician shirt?
No. In fact, I just got the ones that show the arms, the short sleeves, so I can like just flex, like Wesley So does. Same thing. Me and him we got the same wardrobe, so Saturdays we shop.
All right. Well, as good of a job as you've done with us, Levy, this week, we hear the city of Toronto is not pleased with you. So we thought we would give you a chance to apologize. Levy, the floor is yours.
Yep. So I just want to say I've been a New Yorker for about 20 years now. And as a New Yorker, I feel as though it's my status to gatekeep the elite status of other large metropolitan cities. I've made fun of Toronto quite a bit. I've said it wants to be the New York of Canada. And now that I've been here for a week, I've realized that I actually can't be more wrong. Toronto's great. It might be one of the best cities I've ever been in. I've taken walks left, right, up, down, and I've gotten great food. I've met some really great people, and the transportation is amazing. And I just want to say sorry. I'm sorry for making fun of your city. And one more thing, New York is super overrated. So that's all I have to say. And, chess is about learning from your mistakes, and I'm learning from my mistakes. Sorry, Amon, too, by the way.
Amon, you accept his apology as the resident Torontoian?
I'm actually the only one in Toronto, so I'm the only person here, the representative.
The spokesperson.
I will accept the apology, but I'm just going to say this all started with one bagel. I think he had a bagel, compared it to New York, and realized, you know what? They got some good stuff up here.
He's right. Bad.
All right. Well, I'm sure the city of Toronto and the people of Canada feel much better now. But before we take a break, that was Brave Levy, and we're going to remind everybody that Brave means private browsing and so much more. By default, Brave blocks ads and trackers on every page and video you visit, even on YouTube. That's right. No ads means up to 3 times faster page loads, faster streaming, faster playback, faster Gotham chess videos. It means 35% longer battery life while saving on mobile, data, and internet bandwidth. For Android, iOS, and desktop, get the best browser for gamers, streamers, and creators. Switch in 60 seconds at brave.com/chess. Much more to come from day 2 of our CGC title match. We could be close to crowning a champion and giving away $200,000. Subscribers, stick around for much, much more exclusive content right here on Twitch.
Honestly, today Wesley just played amazing chess. I'm just very upset about the third game, which I think I totally outplayed him, but then he showed some great defense, and of course I should have just taken the draw at the end, but I just got too carried away, and like with 4 seconds, of course I should take a draw. It's a very basic mistake, and against a player like Wesley, it does not go unpunished. So no, just great play by him, and I just hope to put up a good fight tomorrow.
Does it give you a little bit of a solace that you were better in that game, and if you had converted, this would actually be an equal match right now? Does that give you some hope for tomorrow?
Not particularly, but I'm just happy that sort of like more ambitious than ever, just going all out, not something I usually do. So just happy that I'm fighting.
What would you put your chances at let's say, getting to at least an Armageddon tomorrow?
Objectively, it's not very high, but I'll just try to start from zero and just try to forget today and try to put up my best chess tomorrow.
Hey, Grandmaster Nihal Sarin, you know, I've read your biography and I can't find any sports that you're into.
I kind of like ping pong.
Ping pong, you say? Well, today is your lucky day. Let's get it on.
Yeah, so I guess you have a better chance here than in chess.
Yeah, he's actually right, but okay.
So Robert, about cannoli.
Yeah, love cannoli.
I'd love cannoli too. Can't even describe how much I'd want some. Hey,
too.
Danny, what are you doing there? Nobody puts Danny in the corner. Come over here.
Welcome back to Toronto and the CGC title match. We travel inside the gameplay hall, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the CGC Championship Trophy, which will be awarded later today. Also to be awarded, the mouth-watering $200,000 first place prize. In front of you is what we have given out thus far. Awesome prizes to all of the players. Second place will receive 100 Gs. Not too shabby either. Welcome, everybody. I'm alongside International Master Levy Rosman, the one, the only Levy. It's been such a pleasure commentating the games with you. I'm sad it's the last day, but I'm happy that we get to commentate another game.
Yeah, me too. Listen, man, it's been such a great time here in Toronto alongside you and your effervescent personality. You like that?
You're right off the bat, man. You're not wasting any time.
Listen, that was a tough first game today, right? That was Nihal striking back a little bit, but he still only got a draw, and he's still down 2 points.
He's still down 2 points. Wesley more than happy to draw with the white pieces. He was cool, he was calm, he was collected. If he reaches 4.5 points, he wins the CGC title match. All he needs, Levy, is just one more point. Another view of the trophy, and we are about to begin. Seatbelts fastened.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. In some sort of, when teams compete for playoffs, right, in baseball, there's something called like a magic number. Well, right now, we are in a match situation of that sort. There is a spot here where the match could end. Wesley now has to put the game away with the black pieces.
He most certainly does. We look at our rapid insights. Their wild accuracy by both players and a lot of wild games by both players. You know what? There's not a lot of, Levy, bad moves.
Right. That's exactly right. And Nihal's going to have to hope for some bad moves, right? As we're about to boot up game number 6 over here. Nihal really hopes games go to end games that he can win in scrambles. It was a similar strategy that Hikaru adopted versus Wesley.
That's exactly right.
Now, I called for a Nimso Indian. Are we going to get the move 3 knight c3?
No, we're going to get a repeat of the move he played against Anish, bishop f4 on the board. Do you think Wesley prepared for that?
Yeah, he did. I mean,
they're repeating it.
And they're repeating.
Oh, look how quickly he took with the queen. That was a statement move.
That was a statement move. And if we just... I'm just going to very, very quickly show off to the move knight d2. This is the move that has been played many, many times. That's not on the board right now. The queen took and then went straight back, and Wesley's like, thanks, man. I'm up a pawn after 8 moves.
Yeah, what you got? And most importantly, Anish took c takes d4. Later on, Nihal pushed his pawn to e5, which he does now as well. Now, Levy, here, the type of position fundamentally changes. Just because you've shifted the pawn from d4 back to c5, the center is wide open, and I would imagine that that favors the side that's up material.
That's exactly right. It's kind of why Wesley has a wry smile on his face and 11 seconds more on the clock than he started the game with, ladies and gentlemen. That is why they have the 2-second bonus, and that's exactly why he has 15-11 on the clock. He knew this was coming. And the thing about playing these sidelines on move 3 that are potentially dubious is that you play them once. You do not play them again, at least not in a 15-minute format. That's why Wesley's smiling, and maybe a3 is going to come as a surprise. Now, here's one of the 2 things that's going to happen. Either Nihal and Wesley know the exact same thing for 20 moves, and it will just be a draw. Or Nihal's like, oh my god, he knows everything. Now I'm going to take a risk, and it's going to fail in spectacular fashion.
I can see why Nihal repeated bishop f4. I mean, he's frustrated. He played the Catalan. That didn't work. He's played all sorts of stuff that hasn't worked. He has repeated lines before in the CGC. He played the modern on more than one occasion and reached the kinds of positions he wants to reach. But this is such a risky choice, precisely because you're sacrificing a pawn. And we both know, Levy, that this sacrifice has to be on sound. If it was sound, all of the vultures at the top would have been playing this for many years.
That's exactly right. There would have been books and articles and magazines written on this. But the truth is that black is just up a pawn, and white is kind of desperately struggling to prove what they have for that pawn.
Well, let's try to figure out what Nihal is saying he has for the pawn. What jumps out at me, and you can correct me, if I'm wrong, this pawn on e5 is an asset. It's clamping down on some central squares. It's making it harder for black to breathe in the center. That bishop on d3 is aiming at the h7 pawn. So one idea that jumps out at me is, in response to castles, white could consider a move that may seem bizarre, h4, but this is actually a very typical attacking idea. And if black develops nonchalantly, then there's kind of a souped-up Greek gift sacrifice with bishop h7 and knight g5. The idea of h4 is to support the knight and open the h-file. This position after king h6 might still be unclear, but this is the last thing Wesley wants, and this is the first thing Nihal wants.
Exactly right. And there's not a huge amount of risk involved here. There's sometimes Greek gift means you got to win or you lose. Actually, in this case, you might just get a draw, right? It might just be a perpetual check, which doesn't exactly end the match yet, but that would mean that Nihal has to win the rest of the games.
Yeah, I mean, a draw here with the white pieces for Nihal would be more unpleasant than going on a first date with someone who's got halitosis. So it's out of the question.
Wow.
That's your word of the day.
Yeah, halitosis, effervescent. I love it. By the way, I just want to show something very funny. So the move knight c3 here looks like it solves all of black's problems. It's a very funny
Levy, the move knight c3 looks like it solves all of black's problems. It's a very funny move.
Yeah. And we have this, this, and then this.
Okay.
And
it's pretty
black is in.
Darn good for black.
Yeah. And, well, the move knight c3
Unfortunately, there's queen c2.
Queen c2, which is a very funny move. And suddenly everything is defended, and right, life is good.
The knight has to ignominiously return back to home base. Now, Wesley invested over a minute and a half, actually, and developed the bishop to d7. I would hazard a guess and say that he actually wants to maintain flexibility with regards to his king. Of course, the move h4 lacks a lot of the luster if black is uncastled. Maybe Wesley is contemplating queenside castle. I don't think so. I think he is going to castle kingside. It's just that he's, again, maintaining maximum flexibility here.
That is wow, that is quite an idea. Long castles. So you just completely avoid this whole Greek gift nonsense that you play.
I don't need any of that. Just castle queenside. Go the other way.
3 zeros. Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, Nihal, the thing about this position is that the only reason it's not just a clean 1-point advantage to the side that's up the material worth 1 point is because, yes, exactly as we have been describing, white has more space. White has more open lines. White is doing a nice job also restricting enemy piece play. So all these squares are totally restricted. This knight is just standing nicely. It's not actually doing anything. And Nihal will load up his cannons and maybe jump in here at some point. But
such as now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally.
At some point being like
maybe literally
12.
exactly at this moment. But of course, it's a very committal decision. Once you do that, there's no going back. And it's very unlikely the game will somehow become a draw, but Wesley is such a pragmatic player that he might just trade a pawn back and be okay.
Yeah, I mean, the power of being able to make a draw and that almost being tantamount to a win really cannot be overstated. It's like it gives you superpowers and it makes available certain options that you wouldn't consider in a normal game. So to your point, knight c4, knight d6, definitely a tempting idea. Black will grab that knight off the board faster than Moist Critical deliver that mate on f2 against XQC. That knight will be gone, but in its stead will be a rather nasty pawn on d6 replaced by a knight. Nihal starts with a flexible move of his own. He brings the queen out to e2. In the event of castles, he also has the idea of building a battery with queen e4, and that's what he wants. He wants to provoke a weakness on the king side, and then he wants to checkmate Wesley on the h-file.
That looks like a lot of fun to play in 30-second chess, 1-minute chess, 3-minute chess, 5-minute chess, any type of chess. Queen e4, h4, h5 is always good for checkmate. Wesley, with the move a6, has indicated that he would like to play b5. True or false?
True.
Okay.
Well, okay, a6 is another one. I mean, Wesley is adhering to his strategy, right? He's playing flexible moves. He's kind of waiting for Nihal to put his cards on the table because at some point Nihal is going to run out of useful moves. And here's the thing, Levy. If white castles kingside, you might wonder why white's not doing that. After black castles, you lose the ability to play h4. You can still make that move, but you don't have that rook on h1, which is going to lie in wait. So they're almost playing this weird kind of waiting game.
That's right, yeah. Neither side wants to castle. Neither side wants to tell the other the intel of the position.
Yeah, a6, typical Wesley move, and he's tossing the ball back into Nihal's court. He's up a pawn. He's got that knight on d5. Everything is good here.
And Nihal can basically move his king or move his knight. And he moves his king. Yeah, he commits the king to the king side, and there's no h4 anymore. I mean, there is, but there also isn't because there's no rook on h1.
Exactly, and now queen e4 is a mate threat, but that's about as scary as Barney the Purple Dinosaur. I mean, that threat can be defended against with the move g6.
Well, in the defense of millions of kids, yeah, he might actually be a bit scary.
Hey, I was a Scooby-Doo kind of kid, so
okay,
I wasn't scared by anything. Okay,
yep.
The scariest thing was Scooby-Doo and the Pirate Island movie. That was the peak of terrifying. Anyways.
I saw South Park when I was 10. That probably scarred me for life.
Scarred you for life.
Yeah,
and that's why you turned out to be the way you are,
exactly.
I see.
Yep.
See, you should have told me this on day one that we were commentating.
Yeah, but, you know, surprises are better, and that's why we've been such a great team.
You're making me emotional, and we're barely past move 13. Castles is on the board by Wesley. Nihal, is he going to throw in the move queen e4? Will that hurt? I don't know.
I don't know. Threatens mate can't be a bad move, or maybe it can be a really bad move. I don't know. It's for some reason, it's kind of hesitant here from Nihal not to play this move. He could still play h4, knight g5, and just hope for the best, but black just has to play h7 to h6, and there's no attack.
Yep.
And I don't know. We've seen this, like, this hesitation from Nihal has been ubiquitous throughout this match, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't like the expression gotten into his own head because let's be real, the actual reason Wesley is winning this match, the reason is on the board. Wesley has won this match on the board. We can talk about psychology, but at the end of the day, he's played better chess moves. With that said, Levy, you're right. It just seems like Nihal has second-guessed himself in certain moments.
Whoa.
And bishop b5. You talked about it. He's giving back a pawn strategically.
Yeah, Wesley just not letting Nihal have any fun. That is a forced exchange of at least one piece. And if you don't trade, the only move you have to not trade is knight to c4, right? Just say, I don't want to trade with you. Okay, well then black is just going to have a bishop here forever.
Knight c4 played, bishop here forever, and then the knight from b8 could come out. What an interesting strategy Wesley is adopting here. And to help us understand the strategy more, we have the perfect guest. Let's have the reigning U.S. chess champion, Fabiano Caruana, jump into the booth with us to give his opinion and call the game. Fabi, an honor to have you in the studio once again.
Thank you, Danya. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, knight c4 is on the board. We're 15 moves in. What do you make of what's happening thus far? Who does it favor?
Well, the position is super complicated. I was very surprised by Nihal's choice because he already played this line. He beat Anish with it. Actually, guys, I had a question for you. Do you know if this line has a name with d4, c4, and bishop f4?
Other than the Nihal variation? I don't think it does, actually. I think it's one of the few lines that is common enough to warrant a name. Like, one a4 has a name, and this doesn't?
Yeah. I think it should have a name. And I was thinking, since it's sort of a hybrid between bishop f4 and c4, and I love hybrid openings, maybe we could call it the Liger?
The Liger?
The Liger.
The London and the Tiger?
The London, the Lion, and the Tiger?
The Lion and the Tiger.
Lion and the Tiger.
I thought you were going for a London system because bishop f4.
That makes sense.
The tricky thing about not naming openings on Twitch is you gotta get out there because someone's gonna put it up somewhere. Someone now is gonna make it on Wikipedia.
The Limzo Indian?
The Limzo.
Oh god, that doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it?
Yeah, the annoying thing about these Queen's Gambits that end up with no names is they just get Queen's Gambit decline. Bleh, like there's nothing. It's just like various sidelines. This bishop f4 move. Fabi, when did bishop f4 become a thing?
Funny sound effect.
I mean, I think I mentioned this the other day. The first time I've seen it was Neiman Robson in the U.S. Championship. I'm sure it's happened before. Maybe there's even a course out on it, some sort of opening course that like tip people off that you can do this.
Come on, there's no course. The move speaks for itself.
That is definitely true. But yeah, Nihal did get an interesting position. It might be a rather dubious one for white, but still, it's very imbalanced, and he's showcasing his intention to play queen e4 and potentially knight g5 at some point with this move h4.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's played this move even with no rook on h1, and he's repurposing this pawn. It used to be an anchor point for g5. It still might be, but now it's also used as a battering ram in the event that black plays g6. Knight a5 is on the board. Levy, I mean, you called this strategy early. Wesley's just going and trading all the pieces on the queen side. Nihal won't have anything left to attack with pretty soon.
I get mad on the opponent's behalf that play Wesley. Because it's just he's so like everything you think you have, he just says, all right, so do it. Like execute it, right? So now queen e4 might get played. Wesley will play g6. And then what? And now there's the threat of trading all the pieces. That's a legitimate threat because you're down a pawn with white. You can't trade too many pieces. You'll simply lose in the endgame. Wesley just gave him a pawn back, and Nihal didn't take it. So he's not interested in making a draw.
I'm wondering if maybe queen e4, g6, and knight d6 is some sort of idea. At least you're down a pawn, but you have something to show for it. A knight on d6 is extremely annoying, and if black were to take, then we have a pass pawn, which might prove to be weak, but for the moment, you can't really get rid of it, so it is quite a dangerous pawn as well.
Yeah, this construction, bishop on g3, pawn on d6, is surprisingly robust. And just to show, black has managed to trade two minors, but he's gone from the frying pan into the fire. This pawn on d6, it's super unpleasant. Somehow the knights are discombobulated. Wesley would have to handle the position with more nuance should the position on d6 appear. But just to add to your point, Levy, about how calmly Wesley handles these types of positions, I mean, I saw him this morning. He was taking a walk early, breathing the crisp Toronto air, sporting a pair of Crocs. He looked comfortable, totally unconcerned. I mean, the guy is like an iceman. Fabi, you have experienced that many times, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Wesley is known as a very objective, accurate player. And he was just nodding his head a second ago. He was sort of vibing with the position, I guess. He seems to be happy with how it's going. Yeah. It is still a good outcome, I think, for Nihal. Despite maybe the objective evaluation, at least he got a big fight. This is a must-win for him. Like, there's no other way to put it. He just can't afford a draw. Of course, I mean, a loss is, immediate match over. But a draw is almost akin to that as well.
Whoa, he doesn't go to d6.
He went back to e3?
He goes back to e3.
That's allowing knight takes e3, forcing queen takes e3, and then the idea, I guess, is that queen h6 at least is a very menacing square for that queen, but I don't even see what that threatens.
So can you now just take on d3 and play something, or even queen b6 immediately? There's no need for black to release the tension first.
Let's try just go all in. Queen h6.
Queen h6?
Okay, what if I just keep trading pieces? I take it, and and then I go rook AD. But then maybe rook D6 already?
Yeah, rook D6 is an idea, but I'm wondering if maybe the other rook should go to D8 because then you have bishop F8.
Bishop F8 with bishop G7 potentially, but it mainly chases the queen out of H6.
Yeah, and if at some point white were to play knight G5, black can comfortably take that because if white could recapture with a bishop, that's super dangerous. But, you know, recapturing with something else doesn't really threaten black so much.
Glitching off
Yeah,
the map here.
now the pawn is blocking in the bishop. There's no pathway to F6. It's totally inaccessible. Airport's closed. Not to mention that, okay, here specifically, the rook also hangs, but...
just the convenient byproduct of your entire attack. Yeah, Nihal, by the way, just does not... He looks locked in, but his hands are all over the place. He's back and forth, like going, leading back, getting up to his monitor, but he's breathing a lot, quite a bit. I think he also senses that this is the game, right? Like, we're not... I sacrificed the pawn on move 7, and I'm playing this line specifically because I want to win the game, not because I'm interested in making any sort of draw. Why did he not go knight D6, though? This is the question. I feel like throughout this match, he's just on the defensive somehow. We're a little bit unsure of when to jump in against Wesley.
I think he really wanted to get rid of the knight on D5. He just thought it's too strong a defensive piece covering F6, covering squares like F4, E3 for the queen to jump into H6. He just wanted to get rid of it at any cost. Even though it's a trade of pieces, there are still a lot of pieces on the board and attacking potential. And I'll make a slight prediction, not on the result of the game, but I feel like at some point in this game, Nihal will get winning chances. Whether that means some sort of advantage or even like a winning advantage, I think that will happen because it feels like a position, especially low on time, where it's easy to lose control. And Wesley is hesitating a bit. Like knight takes E3 just comes to mind immediately, but he doesn't want to allow the queen potentially to H6. There's that element of fear in the game that you don't want to give your opponent even the counterplay or the attack. You just want to kind of trade all the pieces and go to the next game. And maybe that psychological element will lead Wesley astray a bit.
How much of the thought process is changed when you're in a match situation? So it's 3.5 to 1.5. Like if this was just an individual game, some classical tournament, whatever, is it significantly different than being up 2 points in a match and trying to prevent the comeback? Or does it not really matter? You just try to play the position?
I think start of a match, you don't think about it too much. At this point, it just penetrates their thoughts so much. It's completely in both of their heads. Even maybe more so for Wesley because he is an inch away from winning the entire title, the giant prize fund, the prestige, everything. Nihal, he's thinking, I just need to get in it. But for sure, there were moments in this match where Nihal also got negatively affected by the match psychology. I think it's more of a negative effect than a positive one for players. Usually, it kind of interferes with your play when you get these thoughts, not about the game, the chess, the position, but the match situation, if you're behind in the score, if you're ahead in the score, if you want to preserve your lead, or if you want to make sure that you don't get behind in the match, those kinds of thoughts do interfere with your play.
That's really good insight, and I can't emphasize enough that the difference between the first and second place prize is 100 Gs. It's 100K for second, 200K for first. That's a huge sum of money. It can't but interfere to some degree in your thinking process. But Wesley, he continues to play this in such a calm manner for the time being. Now, even for the nitpickiest of nitpickers, it would be very hard to nitpick Wesley's play this tournament. It's been clean. It's been virtually flawless with, one or two very notable exceptions. But, Fabi, Levy, either of you could comment on this. Is it fair to say that, insofar as you can nitpick, he's had a couple of games where his conversion hasn't been all that clean? Like I remember his last game in Hikaru, that was almost a disaster. So should Nihal be hyping himself up by telling himself that Wesley is getting nervous right now? Or is that too much psychologizing?
I'll let Fabi go.
Yeah, I think even though Wesley has been super impressive throughout the entire event, there are moments that can give Nihal hope. Even in the games yesterday, where, in the third game, from a worse opening, he got into a winning advantage. He can outplay Wesley if the right circumstances come to pass. It's not easy. And it doesn't happen often. It's not like, you're getting better every game. In fact, it only really happened that he got a big chance in one game in this match so far. But still, he can look to that with a degree of optimism as I'll still maybe get some chances. I'm still capable of getting chances against this guy.
I wanted to bring up a point. Like, obviously, we're sitting here waiting to see if Nihal, like, how he's going to continue his attack. Maybe he's going to get in on the dark squares. Fabi, I had a question for you because obviously you've been around. You've played people like Vishy from the past generation. You've played guys like Nihal and maybe even younger. I don't know. Some of those guys might be younger than Nihal from the current generation. If I don't know if this is too complicated of a question. How many, like, what sample size of games do you need to see of a person to nail their playing style?
That's a very interesting question, and it's difficult to answer because players, we tend to have these myths about players, but usually chess players have very, very complex styles. It's not like Magnus likes endgames or Hikaru likes sharp positions.
Right.
That's like there are these
I like chocolate.
there are these stereotypes about players, which is natural. Like you see a few games where Magnus does something incredible in endgame, and you think, oh, he's an endgame wizard, which is true for sure. But most top players are very universal, and there are some slight stylistic differences between people. Sometimes there's even major ones, but those don't manifest so clearly in games because very often the main tool that strong players have at their disposal is their calculation. As James Canty would say, calculation over everything, and that's definitely true at the top level. And when a guy like Wesley or a guy like Nihal calculates, they actually tend to reach similar conclusions in their calculations. They tend to see a lot of the same lines. Some of the differences might be in less concrete positions or in decisions that may not even have an objective truth to them. Sometimes it's just, I like this type of position more than others. But in many ways, players play similarly to one another. Still, a lot of it is psychology also. Once that comes into play, sometimes players do crazy things. Like you give Wesley a position one day where he would never make a mistake, but if it's another day and he's feeling a bit differently, he might make a mistake in that type of position.
Mm-hmm. Well, we see, by the way, speaking
Some
of
moves.
Yeah. What do you think about knight d2 as opposed to maybe something like h5 being a bit more confrontational? We get that this is trying to go to e4 and f6. Is it too slow or is it just right?
I see the bar doesn't like it, but I do like it. Once that knight gets to f6, that's very scary, because if you take, then you have that eternal mating net around black's king.
Yeah, I think the engine, just looking ahead, is always meeting knight f6 with bishop f6. That's a lot scarier for a human than it is for a computer, because that's not the same as the situation with the queen on h6. Now that there's a pawn on f6, the queen obviously does have a direct pathway to h6. So maybe black needs to position his queen to be able to meet queen h6 with queen f8, but that's a pretty flimsy defensive construction. I'm on the same page. I like knight d2. Should Wesley play as quickly as possible down the d file? Should he go just like rook d4 and rook d8 and try to make Nihal run out of fuel before he manages to get his knight to f6?
Yeah, I love this move, rook to d4, because the problem after knight to e4 for white is that knight to c4 comes, and the queen has sustained contact with the knight on e4, which it gets a bit awkward, and also e5 is hanging potentially, that's falling off. Like if queen e2, I don't immediately see the problem with knight takes e5. Maybe there is, of course, there is some sort of pin there, but I don't immediately see why black should avoid that. So knight c4 is very annoying, rook d4 is very annoying. You don't want to play queen f4 because then your queen and bishop, they're in like a weird sort of weird position, and the knight on e4 is pinned as well. So yeah, rook d4 looks like a really good move, but we see Wesley did not play that.
He instead dropped his knight back to c6. So he's, gosh, this d4 square, it's so popular with black pieces, more popular than Troy Bolton in High School Musical. Every piece wants a bit of that d4 square, but you could get into a bit of the, I forget what the term is, superfluous piece situation, where you have one outpost and you have four pieces that want to access it. So Fabi, I think it's clear that Nihal should play knight e4. Your point about knight takes e5 actually being a thing, knight e5 has to be considered in response to knight e4.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very annoying for Nihal, that he has to consider not only knight d4, but also knight takes e5. And the thing with the knight on d4 is it's such a good defensive piece because it can always come into f5 to cover potentially g7 if there's like a white pawn in f6 and queen coming to h6. Knight f5 would deal with all those threats. So knight d4 is a beautiful square for the knight. I don't think this is a case of superfluous pieces because black can also put the other rook on d5, so black has a number of
Everyone's
outposts.
happy.
Yeah.
Now, is there still any merit for the white knight to go to d6 instead of f6? Because it's going to start getting really difficult to get the queen over here with the knight just very freely being able to kick it out. So does Nihal have to change the game plan here?
But you know what black might go for after that? He might just sack the exchange, because then he has two pawns and a beautiful knight on d4, and I feel like it's relatively risk-free for black in that scenario.
That's so worth illustrating. That's such a buzzkill. Takes, just rook takes d6. Again, weaponizing the fact that white that Black only needs a draw, and in the event of takes b4, Black can support this very important cog in the machine with the move b6. I mean, this just looks so solid. You know, as a Soviet GM would say, how can you lose with a knight like this on d4? Yeah,
I don't think you can. And Black will play f6 and e5. The knight is the most powerful knight that ever existed. It's never going to be booted out of the center.
That's exactly right. And after knight d4, Nihal is already down to 2.5 minutes. That's a storyline we haven't mentioned yet this game. We've talked a lot about how comfortable Nihal is in time scrambles, but Wesley is his kryptonite in every type of position.
Yeah, the time is a serious problem for Nihal right now, because even if the position is objectively good for Black, once it's low on time, with king safety being an issue for Black, it's very, very difficult to play. But if Wesley has that nice buffer of time, it'll make his play quite a lot easier. So we see what is a very logical move. I think probably Wesley will take... Oh, he plays king g7 instead.
Ooh,
wow. That's
so clinical. He just doesn't want to take the knight. He just says, hey, you want to chill on f6? I'll let you chill on f6. What's going to be your follow-up? Queen g5, I think, can be met with h6. And as Nihal contemplates his next move, he's dropped below 2 minutes. Fabi, we are going to release you and let you enjoy the rest of the show. We will see you in the gameplay hall. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here, guys.
Thank you, Fabi. Okay, back we go to the game. 90 seconds now on the clock for Nihal Sarin. King g7 is a Wesley So vintage move right there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. Like, I just thought you obviously take the knight, and now that you've got a buffer there, you know that the queen isn't going to make it to h6. Well, you play exactly the way that I had in my mind, and that's why I'm here, and he's there. He just plays king to g7, and queen goes to h3. I mean, again, this looks really good if the time situation is inverse, because Black has a lot of time to panic. But right now, Black... It doesn't. Black just no need to panic. It's Nihal who has to play instantly.
Yeah, and Wesley can push this pawn up to h5. I mean, White's only idea here is to just, I mean, given the opportunity, White's going to play h5 instantly. And the worst case scenario for Black is where the h file opens and the queen infiltrates h7. Something tells me Wesley's not going to allow that to happen. I think he might be calculating h5, g4. At this point, we're just going to see Nihal throwing the kitchen sink at Wesley on the king side.
That's exactly right. I kind of called it, right, when I was in there. But I thought Nihal was going to play 3 knight c3. I'm shocked he hasn't, by the way.
Yeah,
like,
I know. That's the one move he hasn't tried, and it's such a rich opening.
Yeah, like knight. Okay, at least don't play both knights, right? Because we know there's some forcing really sharp lines, like in the semi-tirage nowadays. But I'm just so flabbergasted. Like, why play bishop f4? It's really like a one-time thing. It's not something like I played it 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to play it once again. So, strange decision-making, but a good learning experience overall. And let's just not forget the match is still not over.
Not over at all.
Wesley still has to win the game or at least draw it.
And I like the way Nihal has handled this game. The pawn sacrifice is unobjective. He is worse here. I think Wesley is maybe 5 or 6 accurate moves away from winning this game. And the first step is to get Wesley low on time. And that's precisely what Nihal is doing. Wesley down to 4 minutes. He drops his king back to h8. And what a tricky move this is. Look at that. If White plays h5, Black can now play bishop takes f6. Remember, this move was impossible because there was a king on g7. This would be a discovered check. Since there's no check, Black plays queen takes f4. And parries hg with the simple fg, and the game is over.
You have to understand, in a position like this where you have queen, bishop, knight, 2 rooks, a bunch of different pawns, to move the king
it's unbelievably
after you've just moved it once, a king move creates the threat of taking the knight.
Wow. I mean, that is just an exquisite move by Wesley. It boots the knight out of f6.
Rook
back
D1,
it
rook
goes
D8.
to e4. Rook D1, rook D8.
Just swap the rooks. Let's go. It's a very famous bullet technique.
Yep,
take the rook,
trade all the pieces.
and immediately slide the other one over. And if White has 2 choices. Trade all the rooks or slide over. And
Nihal has about 5 miles left in his gas tank, and he needs to drive cross-country. And rook D1, rook D8 takes the air out of the building. And if Wesley can get this into a pawn-up ending, I mean, let's actually also not forget that a draw doesn't lose the match for Nihal. So if it gets into a situation where Nihal has no winning chances, that doesn't mean he should resign. He actually should try to save a draw, and then he will have to pull out 2 wins on demand. But
he's had some, actually, his best positions of this entire match have been with the black pieces.
Exactly. So he does not lose the match with a draw. He shouldn't just give this away. But rook takes d1 and rook d8 puts Wesley on the cusp of winning the CGC.
And one thing I wanted to mention, and there it is, rook d1 and rook d8. You, me, and Fabi set history. Did you know that?
Wait, say that again?
Like, you, me, and Fabi, when he was here for a few minutes, we actually made history.
How did we make history?
We were the curliest-haired commentary team of all time.
I don't think anybody can even dispute that. Like, second place is somewhere in
I don't even know
the shadows.
Yep, I don't even know where they are.
By the way, look at the king G8. Look at how he's using his king. King G7 to H8 to G8. Triangulation in the middle game.
And the reason that black is not taking, despite actually occupying this square more than any other on the board, is because there are tactics, right? There's tactics onto this queen. There are tactics on the D file as well. At the end, the bishop could get pinned to the rook. And there's no reason to even get into any of that.
No, that's
Wesley's not
exactly
interested.
right. That's exactly right. If you had taken twice, Queen D3 would have won the piece. Another accurate move by Wesley.
That was the best move.
That was the best move. It chases the bishop out of F4. Nihal has his back against the wall. If you have to play bishop H2, oh my God, Levy, at that point...
H6 played, he's sacrificing the bishop.
No, but he can just take it, and the knight defends G7, and you can't take the knight because the rook takes on D1 with check. G takes F4, wins the game for Wesley.
Yep. All he
G takes F4 is over.
G takes F4, king slides over, and that's it. There's no queen G7. It's a blunder of a bishop, or I don't know, maybe just a failed sacrifice. But this, we might be looking at the final moves of the Chess.com Global Championship right here.
There we go. Nihal with the final bluff. Wesley does not buy it. G takes F4, and the last gasps for Nihal Sarin. You can just see it on Wesley's face. He knows it. Nihal knows it. The game is over.
Head. Wesley breathes a sigh of relief as he is now just up a bishop. He's not up a pawn anymore.
Zero compensation. On the next move, he's taking that knight off the board immediately. Get out of there. Nihal grabs his head.
Oh my God.
And it's not just this game that's flying over his mind. It's the entire match.
No, it's the entire match. He did not play like himself the past few days. He's deciding whether to hit the resign button or make a few more moves.
Yeah.
We'll see what he decides.
Well, he's got 30 seconds to make that decision. I think he might throw in a check on G4, hope for a mouse slip. King H8 does get mated.
Yes, King H8 is made in one.
Yep, he does it. King F8. Instantly, the response by Wesley. Got 2 minutes on the clock. That's over. This is it.
This is it. There is absolutely nothing here. There is nothing here.
Oh, the top engine move is knight takes F5, just giving away an entire rook and then a knight.
Yeah, that's not going to happen as time is ticking. Nihal just thinking what went wrong.
The final seconds of the 2022 CGC, the inaugural edition, happening right now. Okay, he takes on D1, but now it's just a full extra bishop for Wesley.
Yeah, we might get a queen D3 or a queen D5.
Yeah, queen takes C5. I think you can just collect.
Yep. Collect the pawn, defend everything. No back rank checkmate. Wesley enjoying himself. A sigh of relief as he knows that he just won $200,000.
Not quite yet. He's a couple moves away.
Okay.
Queen takes C5, queen D7 is Nihal's idea, by the way.
I don't know. That queen E6.
Okay. Yeah. And Wesley has the luxury of just chilling out. He can take his time.
Yeah, he's up a lot. Let's put it this way.
But 100K is on the line this game. Can you imagine that? In the next couple of moves, he can make or break.
Not for Wesley.
Not for Wesley, true.
Not for Wesley, but...
Wow.
Yeah.
He's taking his time here on queen takes C5. I think he's trying to find a suitable response to queen D7.
He might give a check. He might just move his bishop. There are ways to blunder, yes, but even if you hang the bishop, you might still be in good shape, but he's not going to do that.
I think the surgical way is queen E1 check and then queen back to E6 in order to eliminate the H6 pawn with check. And once that pawn's gone, then the king is safe for life.
Yes, queen E1 check. It's a very common technique. I like to call it the boomerang. You go up, you check, and he plays queen D6, also reasonable. He will block the check with the bishop. The king gets some air. You can probably even take on H6.
You can. You're up so many pawns in addition to your extra bishop. I mean, he's also up a pawn at this point.
And the only reason Wesley's not playing moves instantly is because he has 1:15 on the clock, and he just doesn't want to mess anything up.
Yeah, this is a great lesson for anyone watching. Even the greatest in the world in a completely winning position, they take their time, they slow it down, they make sure that every move counts. And the bishop, I think, is going to swing over to B6. Attacking F2, and then the queen can pile up on F2, and you don't really care about the B7 pawn. You're fine giving it away.
You do not.
But Wesley doesn't.
No, queen B6 on the board. He's gone below a minute, making it mildly exciting. The only thing Wesley So can blunder here is a perpetual check.
Yep.
That is it. And that's even that is fine with him.
And even that is very hard to blunder.
Yes, that is except like blunder.
That's it.
And that's it.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. The headphones are taken off for the last time. Wesley So. Wesley So is our champion of the 2022 Chess.com Global Championship here in Toronto. All smiles as Wesley takes the first CGC title and the $200,000 first prize. Levy, what a moment.
What a moment indeed. Wesley So, we see there holding the 24-carat 50-pound trophy. That may or may not be accurate. Massive congratulations to him. He has been lights out the past 2 matches.
I don't know if anybody has ever deserved a victory more than Wesley deserves the CGC title. Let's review our final score. He wins with a dominant score of 4.5, 1.5. It was basically a wire-to-wire victory, Levy.
Yeah, it was. From game one, that Petrov defense where Nihal played prep that Wesley himself had on the board in St. Louis just a few weeks ago, to the final moves of game 6, it was just all Wesley. You could argue game 3 had a couple of tense moments, but from that point forward, it was all Wesley. Incredibly impressive. And he's just been the antithesis of the last 2 opponents.
He most certainly has. King Wesley dominated from the first moment until the last, no matter how you look at it, from the opening preparation perspective, from a converting advantages perspective, from just a keeping his composure perspective. No matter how you slice it, how you spin, this is one of the greatest performances maybe of all time.
Yeah. Seriously, at these stakes, he's been tremendous. He beats Hikaru in a neutralizing type of fashion, playing anti-Hikaru type of chess, getting him to play a little uncharacteristically risky, and then taking him down, although it was tense in game 8. And in this final, I mean, what more can you ask for? Like, literally, what more can you ask for? He did everything right in that match, with the exception of maybe 2 moves, and that's really impressive in 6 games.
And it's so poetic that, you know, his really only big blunder of this entire tournament occurred in the very first game against Dmitry Andreikin. He was off to that start. We were singing a completely different tune. Andreikin winning the first game with black. Maybe if Dima had converted that position, we would have sung an entirely different tune the entire event.
That's true.
But he didn't, and that's the way that chess works.
Yeah. And just friendly reminder for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, you just got here. In the very first game of this entire event, Wesley So was 1 move away from losing, right? Maybe 2 moves. And that's what this is all about. 1 move can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he is our champion.
He is our champion, and our champion is standing by with Nemo. Nemo, to you we go.
Thank you, Levy and Danya. Congratulations, Wesley, on winning the CGC title match and $200,000. How do you feel after winning your last game and such a large sum of money?
Yeah, I'm very nervous. The last few games were very nerving. I think on game 5, I actually was in trouble. Like, I was misplaying the position, and it's never good. But the last game was much better. I just didn't put pressure on myself. But I'm very happy and very pleased to win it. This is definitely big. I mean, I have a lot of people to thank. I'll thank them again later. But it's amazing. It's great. I'm very grateful to win the first Global Chess Championship.
Absolutely. And in that last round, Nihal played the Bishop F4, the Bishop F4 London hybrid. Were you
famous?
Right? Were you prepared for it? Did you look at the lines before?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he played it against Anish just 2 days ago, and I'm not sure. I mean, it's a very famous line, so I've definitely looked at it. I'm not sure if Nihal played more than 1 game with it, but yeah, I definitely came prepared. I didn't expect him to repeat that line because it's very forcing. I thought he might go for the London with Bishop F4 anyway. But it was a nice game. I think I knew this idea beforehand. It's Bishop D7, Bishop B5. And I'm not sure if he had any chances. I think 92 was a mistake. I mean, the games were certainly interesting. But in game 5, he had real chances to put pressure. Like, if Magnus Carlsen had black, he'd probably win the game. Like, at some point, after B5, he had A4, and then 92 D5. So he had definite real chances there. I wasn't playing well early today. But I did some warm-up blitz today on Chess.com. I also lost my first couple of games. So maybe a warm-up helps.
You've played a lot of chess this week. What are some of your biggest takeaways? What was your favorite moment?
Well, winning this one, yeah. Winning this one, certainly. Yeah, just keep trying. I just finished a tournament. Reykjavik didn't go well. Like, I finished 6th place, so it's nice to win from time to time. And I like to take the opportunity to thank some people. I'd like to first thank my mother and my family. They did a great job supporting me. I'd like to thank Chess.com and the sponsors for hosting this wonderful event. The players are treated here like kings, basically, like monarchs. This is the best tournament that I've ever played in. I think I can say that honestly. And I'm very grateful for the people that made this happen, like my friend Danny Wrench, who does such a magnificent job to you guys, the commentators, thank you. Also, shout out to my fellow players, Anish, Giri, and Jan Christoph Duda, and also to Fabiano Caruana. I was thinking last night, I never would have imagined a few years ago that Fabiano would be commentating on my games. It's just crazy and insane. And I mean, he's a super strong player. I hope he doesn't spend too much time commentating. But I also like to thank my my friend Gregory Joseph and also George Saba. They encourage me literally before every game. They just cheer me up, and for a player like me, I kind of need those things. Also, I'd like to thank Judith Sataray, who's one of the best referees I've ever seen, and to the Chess.com staff. And I don't know all their names, but particular, I guess, Michael Brancato for running the show. Also to Alex Brewer, to Simon McNamara, and I guess there's many other people I'd like to thank, but shout out also to Robert Hess and other commentators, to Arman Hambleton, to Daniel Narditsky, to you, Haka. And also, I'd like to say shout out to my neighbors in Minnesota, in Bryn Mawr. They watched my games yesterday. Like, they spent the entire weekend watching my games. And they said I think Chess.com did a fantastic job. It's one of the best broadcasts that people have ever seen.
Thank you so much, Wesley. Congratulations once again. And back to you, Danya.
Nemo, applause for the winner. Our winner, Wesley, is going to head to the main set and join Danny and the gang. While we wait, it is time for the brave move of the day, where we highlight a key move or set of moves that decided the outcome of one of our matches today. And unsurprisingly, we have chosen a moment from the final game of this inaugural edition of CGC, from Wesley So's winning game with the black pieces against Nihal Sarin. This is the position in which Wesley played a brilliant defensive move. He stands up a pawn, but Nihal Sarin has developed rather menacing counterplay against his king. He threatens to bust open the kingside with h5, and most importantly, the knight on f6 is untouchable due to the discovery levy. The Iceman produces yet another brilliant move.
Yeah, he was just spectacular defensively throughout this event, but specifically in situations like this, he had just brought his king up instead of capturing the knight a few moves ago. And here, rather than stopping an advancement of a pawn with an advancement of a pawn, Wesley played the cool, calm, and collected king to h8. And this is our brave move of the day, because you can make multiple king moves. You can allow the attack to come in, but the capture on the knight and now moving the king out of that attack would have threatened queen takes bishop. He stops a massive attack on his king by moving his king to the corner and counterattacking Nihal.
Precisely the spot where you think the king is most vulnerable, but he understands, as you very nicely explained, that the threat of bishop takes f6 disarms white's attack entirely. In the event of h5, black just collects the bishop on f4, then recaptures on g6, and white's attack is over red rover. So Nihal, he was forced to drop his knight back to e4. This gave Wesley the chance that he needed to knock both of the major pieces off the board. All of the rooks are going to be gone, and if the rooks are traded, Nihal's winning chances go down to 0. The Indian Grandmaster tried one last trick. He situated his knight on d6.
And by the way,
very nice.
Well, again, I mean, the brave king once again plays king to g8.
King to g8.
He just wouldn't stop moving his king, and they were all the best moves.
The king was the main defensive piece. It's like the goalkeeper scoring all of the goals in that game.
Yeah, he was just like, all right, you guys do your thing. Don't worry, I got you back here. Yeah, king g7, king h8, king g8, like a little triangle in the last 20 moves there. He was playing 3 times he moved this king, I believe.
It's incredible, but notice how many things remain behind the scenes. We took so much for granted about Wesley's play. Even this move, knight d6, so darn tricky. If you would have taken twice, looks like the worst is behind black. Everything is fine. Black is up 2 pawns, but whoop, queen to d3 was Nihal Sarin's idea, and there's pins galore. The bishop can't move either because you lose the queen or because you lose the rook. For example, bishop takes f4, queen takes d8, and white is up in exchange. Yep. Wesley saw through all of those tricks instantly. I mean, it wasn't even close. And instead, as you pointed out, Levy, maybe our honorary second brave move of the day, king g8.
3 of them.
King g8. G5, shutting down the king side. No,
you
won't open the H file.
Yeah, just another one. And g takes f4 is not really brave. It's just, I saw queen g4, queen g6. You just have to see that the knight is obviously defending the g7 square. Yeah, I mean, what a display from Wesley. From start to finish in this match, the last 14 games, he's just been amazing. You can add a few more in that Andraken match. So really 95% of the games here, he played really well and was really clutch. I mean, that's probably a winning formula.
It most certainly is. You could really fill a volume with all of his brave moves and all of his incredible moments. His play was so crisp, it was so clean, it was transcendent. And let's not forget, Levy, this was a rapid time control. We're talking about this as if he just won a tournament like the Tata Steel, but this was a rapid time control, which makes the quality of his play even more incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he was just incredible. That first game, he almost lost, and then he turned it all around. It ended up being a draw, but in his next two matches, he was just... I'm running out of adjectives. I gotta throw it to you.
Well, we are all out of games, so it's a good time to run out of adjectives. Folks, that was our Brave move of the day. Remember, it's time to make your move from Chrome to Brave. Try it now at brave.com/chess. Well, for the last time, folks, that is it for us today. It has been a pleasure crowning a champion with you in chat. Wesley, it has been a pleasure covering your games and calling your play. For International Master Levy Rosman. Levy, what a pleasure it's been to commentate with you. It's been awesome. I had, honestly, the time of my life. For International Master Levy Rosman, I'm Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, and now we get it back to the gameplay hall where Danny and company have a very special guest. Danny, take it away.
Thank you once again to Danya and Levy and all of our casters, all of our commentators who may not be with us in these final moments, but they are here. Amon Hamilton is here. Fabiano Caruana is here on the end, and of course, we have a Chess.com global champion right here. Before we talk to Wesley, let's take a look at our bracket one more time. We push to our final, and then we move our champion's name all the way through. Wesley So is our champion. He is the first ever Chess.com global champion, and we'll have that there right in just a second. All right, well, first things first, as we get Wesley set up here for his name to go through, Wesley, I'm going to ask you how you feeling. There he is. There he is, Grandmaster Wesley So. Clap yourself. Clap for yourself.
Yeah, I like that,
man.
I like that.
Everybody's got it. We got a crowd here live, by the way. Huge shout out first and foremost to the city of Toronto and all the fans. They have showed up daily to remind me how much I screwed up to not have live ticket sales for this event. But so many of them are with us now, and we gave them the special treat of doing so. But all right, Wesley, we got to get to you, man. You did it.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
You won the Global Chess Championship. When you and I were in Oslo in 2019, I felt like there was a similar vibe in every interview I saw. It's like you didn't even believe it yourself how well you were playing throughout. Almost had to convince you when you won the tournament that you did it. Do I need to convince you again that you just won an event in its inaugural season and you are a global champion?
Yeah, probably not today, but tomorrow.
It's sinking in. It's sinking in.
Yeah. No, I'm very pleased and very happy, and I'm very grateful to the people. Also to you, Danny. I mean, you always encourage me. I remember our little talk in Oslo that we had 3 years ago. It really helped a lot. Me and I'm 29 years old. Obviously, there's still some stuff that I want to achieve my chess.
Yeah.
Like try to improve my classical rating and all the good stuff.
Right.
But the last couple 3 weeks have been very rough on me. I think at some point all the losses just sank in. At some point you just want to do better and play better. And it's incredible winning this also to not have lost any games. It's just totally unbelievable.
Yeah.
On the first place, I actually objectively should have lost the match to Jeffrey Xiong. So
yeah,
the history would have been so much different. It's just incredible, all the coincidences that happened there.
You played incredible. We're going to talk a lot about your match. We're going to talk about everything we can while we have you. I mean, have you ever won $200,000 in one go? Do you have any plans? You have any plans with that?
I think I played in Qatar Open once. I won $150 for 10 days.
$150. Okay, well you've moved up in the world, buddy.
Yeah, I did. That was back in 2015.
All right.
I played in the Qatar Open.
Bobby, I want to ask you what questions you have for your U.S. Olympian American teammate, a guy you've played chess with so many times, and
we've played a lot of tournaments recently. Actually, Wesley, you mentioned that some of the last few tournaments haven't gone so well. You've struggled a bit recently. Did that motivate you more?
Yeah, definitely. I guess. I mean, of course, you know, the Chess.com staff, my mother have cheered me up a lot, but I think without those losses, I wouldn't have won today for sure.
Why is that?
Just part. Because, when you're enjoying life, when you have everything you really need in life, and then when you're just enjoying, relaxing, watching movies, reading books, you feel like everything's going well. Like the last few months, I've just been reading the news and all that, and solving some puzzles. And I thought that the U.S. Championship would go decently, but it didn't. And at some point, I guess losing to Christopher Yu really pushed me.
Yeah.
And this is also the 50th anniversary of the Fischer-Spassky match. So I was actually reading all about Bobby Fischer and all about the books I can get about him. And I'm just amazed and impressed by the fact that when Fischer was 8 years old, he already knew what he was going to be, and that is to be world champion. I realized that you really gotta push yourself. You really gotta work. But anyway, as I said, sometimes you play well, sometimes you don't. But you just try to improve and keep getting better. I'm very honored to be sitting beside the former world challenger Fabiano Caruana here.
He's not that big of a deal. Don't worry.
Yeah, if he won 2018, then things would be.
Now you're a global champion. How does that feel?
Yeah.
Global. Some would say global is more powerful than world.
Oh,
I mean, if you say them both together.
I didn't get that one, yes, because Hikaru won the 960, right? That's only world, right?
Yeah.
So this is bigger.
Yeah, but you've now won you've won a FIDE world title. Now you've won a global title. Amon, what does he need to do next?
Well, I mean, Wesley, I was going to ask you, you keep referencing this Jeffrey Zhang match. Like, I wanted to ask you about the format. It's kind of unique, like another knockout tournament. And, do you really think that that ultimately crowns, the strongest player at the end? Because it's very unforgiving.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to say. It's not for me to decide. Because there are different time controls. I think the format is fine. 4 games is a pretty decent amount. I don't know what Fabi thinks, but I think 4 games maybe is okay. 4, 6 games. 8 games is obviously preferable, but it's too long at home. It depends on what time format you're referring to as the strongest player. And I mean, if you start the tournament all over again, things happen.
Yep. Yeah. Making it through this gauntlet to win the trophy and also win the title is nice, but you also take home $200,000. As we look at the final standings, let's see all the money that our players took home. And Wesley, tell me your thoughts about that first place prize. I know I already said it's the most money you've ever won. You confirmed that, but you could probably buy a house with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's like literally all my earnings this year, and then I won it in one day. So yeah, I'm very grateful to the sponsors. Obviously, this is. Yeah. People put up a lot of money for this stuff. You got best production crew, you got Laugh Electronics here, you hired a lot of people. So that's why I said this is one of the best or the best lit. So I'm very grateful to.
I appreciate that.
For all that. And I think the most money I've won before was Millionaire Chess 8 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was the tournament that helped you decide that you actually wanted to take your professional career. You were at Webster University at the time, for those who don't remember. Wesley So wins the Millionaire Open, and that was the push you needed to kind of maybe get off the fence, right, and really go all in. At the time, you committed fully to being a player, and do you have any regrets about that?
No.
Okay, well, there you go. No regrets, right?
Not one bit. Being a chess professional is kind of a weird life.
Yeah.
But it's nice as long as you're trying to achieve something. It's also a fun life, trying to improve, getting better. Because after all, having a 9-to-5 job is quite boring, doing the same thing every day.
Wesley, let me ask you something. You said that some of the early matches you were playing in this tournament were rather difficult, and you had some close calls there. Did that give you extra confidence? Because your match against Hikaru was so smooth compared to some of the earlier moments you had against, let's say, Andreykin or against Jeffrey, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's interesting. I played so much better here than I played during the qualifier. Because in the first round, I played Denis Lasovic, and I lost the second game. And I was also losing in the fourth game, so I almost tied 2-2, and I almost didn't make it.
Then I played Ivanchuk, and I flagged him every game.
Was that your strategy when you were playing Ivanchuk?
Yeah. Because I watch his games on Chess.24, and he's always in time trouble. Also against Ray Robson, he was in time trouble. When you're playing older people, I guess, like Kramnik,
some of them did well. Some of them did well in this event. Kramnik and Chucky, give them their credit, but
yeah,
you're right.
he did.
You're right.
Yeah, Nihal, I also like to make a big shout out to Nihal. He played fantastically well during the entire tournament. Like, he was literally lower seed than every single one of his opponent, but he beat them all. Kramnik, Ding, Anish.
Yep.
Actually, to elaborate a bit on that, because you mentioned that you thought about that before you're playing Ivanchuk. Whenever you have these matches against a specific opponent, are you trying to think up a match strategy for all of them?
A little bit, yeah. Like, for instance, I knew Hikaru would be well prepared in the openings, and I was a bit worried about that. But fortunately, my 1e4, e5 was holding. And I know Hikaru very well. I knew he would try to go into these time scrambles. So I had some ideas here and there, but it doesn't always work. I mean, obviously, I look at the openings and stuff. Like on some players, it's much easier to go 1d4 than 1e4. And yeah, it's hard to say exactly, because like Nihal plays all kinds of openings. Like, he plays 8 different openings, so I didn't need to prepare as much. Yeah, sort of like that. But you know much more about match play than me. I have very little over-the-board match experience compared to you, but you know, I'm hoping one day that will change.
So Wesley, I wanted to ask, like, you know, jumping back a little bit from, you know, the individual games, like, this is held in Toronto. I'm from Toronto.
Yeah.
I know you have some history in Canada. You've played some events. So, I mean, what are your impressions about the city of Toronto, and maybe, you know, will we get more tournaments in Canada?
There's a lot of people from Toronto here, so think about that.
Are there?
Yeah, we got some people here. Yeah, what do you think of Toronto, Wesley?
Yeah, I think Toronto is a great city. I met a few people here. They're very, very friendly and very welcoming. They're just great people. I also heard that it's one of the safest, if not the safest city in North America.
Wow,
that's great. Yeah, I actually played some tournaments here in Canada 10 years ago. Played in Edmonton, played Montreal, played Toronto, also played in Calgary. And you know, I'm glad to be back. I haven't been to Canada ever since, but you know, I know people are very friendly and very welcoming, and they accept you for who you are. And some of the fans here, like, I know one guy who literally traveled 6 hours by train just to get here. Met him in the lobby 2 days ago, and you know, he was very thrilled. And it's nice to see people who love the game like that. Because I love chess very much.
I met Tim too.
Sorry?
Yeah, Tim.
Oh, is that?
I met Tim too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, compared to the United States, Canada doesn't have as big of a chess scene, but hopefully that will change. It's actually a very interesting thing for Chess.com to hold this event here in Toronto.
Yep.
And maybe that's one of the points.
Well, maybe more in the future. So, all right. Well, in the future, how many more events will you win? But shout out to the team. We've got the bracket to take another closer look. How does this look to you, Wesley, to see your name as the Chess.com Global Champion?
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah?
Yeah. Also, yeah, the fact that I didn't lose any games, like, just like a dream come true.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you told me I'd play like this, I would never believe you. I'm the dream.
Yeah. Well, maybe that keeps you in the right mindset, man. Congratulations. You did play like this. You are the first ever Chess.com Global Champion. But before you go, every celebration deserves a cake. We also have Danya's birthday coming up tomorrow. So right now we are joined by Alina of Lux Bakery. You can follow her at Lux Baker on Instagram. She made this incredible cake for us here.
Wow.
It's going to be super tasty, I bet. Thank you so much, Alina. Again, you can check her out on Instagram at Lux Baker. All right, you want a piece?
Well, where's Danya?
I mean, it's his birthday.
Sorry?
It's Danya's birthday, so we'll get it to him later. But we're celebrating you first, man.
Oh, okay.
Birthdays happen all the time. You're more important right now. I love you, Danya.
No one even knows how old Danya is.
All right. Well, before we wrap things up, a final word again from Brave, our sponsor. We appreciate their support so much. Brave means private browsing and so much more. By default, Brave blocks ads and trackers on every page and video you visit, even on YouTube. No ads means up to 3 times faster page loads, faster streaming, and faster playback. It also means 35% longer battery life while saving on mobile data and internet bandwidth. For Android, iOS, and desktop, get the best browser for gamers, streamers, and creatives. Switch in 60 seconds at brave.com/chess. All right, well, that's almost a wrap for us in Toronto. What an amazing week we have had. A super big thanks to the Scheinberg family and the One Hotel Toronto for being such amazing hosts here. For Amon, Canty, Danya, Levy, Hess, Fabi, Nemo, our champion, Giri as well. We want to show our appreciation for you, chat, for watching and being a part of this all week with such huge numbers. Thank you as well to Waveform, our production partner, who did such an amazing job bringing this all together on stream. And of course, a huge shout out to everyone from Toronto for being here, everyone from the Chess.com team who helped make this happen. Shout out to all the players who were in this event who didn't make it here. Maybe you will be a Chess.com Global Champion in the future. Thanks for being with us, everybody. So, as we make our way out, one last reminder that the SCC is back. That's where we'll be next. These players you see before you are going to be kicking things off on November 21st. Participants include Magnus, Arjun, Hikaru, Yanda Pomnishi, Fabiano, Wesley So. Will be there as well. They're all going to try to earn their way for 100K along with 2 other qualifiers who haven't punched their ticket yet. You don't want to miss any of the most exciting Speed Chess Championship to date. Type SCC in the chat for more. All right, everybody, that's officially a wrap for the 2022 Chess.com Global Championship presented by Brave. We've had so many amazing moments this week. I'm Danny Wrench. I want to give one last shout out. Make some noise, Toronto. We hear you in the background. Thank you so much for hosting this incredible event, and we hope to be back. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the team. Thank you to everyone who's crushing it and working super hard at Chess.com. To all the players, one last time, this has been the Global Championship. This was Toronto, and we will see you next for the Speed Chess Championship.